Similar to Mugello, but this place winds its way through the hills, through the trees, through the forest of the Czech countryside. It's very, very hard to actually believe when you're coming up in here into the circuit itself that there is a racetrack. It's very, very well hidden, but wow, it is a hidden gem indeed. Just about 20 or so seconds until we do get our first green light of the 2026 Czech GP. It is worth noting it's Maximo Quiles who is leading the way in the championship. He's been in absolutely sensational form. We knew he would be when we got going in 2026, but the number 28 is 59 clear, as I said, ahead of Alvaro Carpet. Quiles' his teammate, who's there in third at the moment, Marco Morelli, but he's not even yet at 100 points. David Almanza and Brian Uriarte completing your top 5, just ahead of Indonesian rider Vader Pratama. We are already then out on track. 35 minutes of Moto3 action starts to tick down, and last year, El, we were here in July, the back end of July, and we were with a little bit of bad weather on the Friday. It wasn't brilliant all the way through the weekend, but really conditions should only be getting better and better right the way through the course of this weekend. We should have a real dry run right the way from now until Sunday, and that is what the Moto3 lads will want.
Yeah, exactly that. Balaton Park Friday was a little bit iffy weather-wise as well, wasn't it? But Saturday and Sunday in Hungary was pretty nice. But yeah, good for these riders. Forecasts are to be believed. Of course, we can't absolutely guarantee it, but great for the riders to have a full weekend of dry running on this fabulous circuit. Even coming into this weekend, a lot of the riders were saying how much they were really excited to, get from a circuit at Balaton Park, which a lot of the riders do like, it's got to be said. I know Max Quiles is one of them. Of course, went on to win the race a few weekends ago. He likes Balaton Park, but it's very tight, very technical. On a Moto3 bike, it's feels a little bit go-kart track. Moto2 and MotoGP, a completely different ball game. But getting to a circuit like this, you can just see from the pictures, and you guys will know at home from tuning in and knowing the Brno circuit like we all do. It's such a different sort of place, and we go to Assen next week, which again is not quite the same as Brno, but fast and flowing again. So really looking forward to these upcoming weekends, and 2 weekends where Quiles will head into them as favourite once again. It was another phenomenal ride, a phenomenal weekend really from Quiles last time out. Didn't stick it on pole position, that went to David Almanza, of course. Shout out to Almanza, we'll of course speak about him in due course, but Quiles was once again the star of the show, and he's just continuing to grind out these results after a disappointing weekend over in Mugello. He bounced back superbly. Another weekend off, go back home, train, keep your feet on the ground, and Quiles was on the podium here last year, of course, too. That famous battle with Dennis Foggia. I always remember coming out of turn 4, I think it was, after a couple of laps where the wise old Italian of Foggia, of course teammates to Quiles last year, was just roughing him up a little bit as Jose Antonio Rueda was leading, and then gradually got a little bit further ahead, and ultimately that's where Rueda went on to win the race by a comfortable margin. Over 3 seconds in the end was the reigning Moto3 World Champions win here. But Quiles was right in the mix, and obviously goes without saying really, fully expecting the 28 to be right at the front again this weekend.
We just had a quick look at Vader Pratama. Vader Pratama, of course, here for the first time. Last time out was his worst result, 16th place in the Grand Prix back in Hungary, so really looking to try and put that to one side. It was his first finish outside the top 10, obviously DNF over in Kosovo as far as finishes are concerned. Vader Pratama down there in 16th place last time out. Obviously had the long lap penalty to serve as well, so that wouldn't have helped, but Pratama didn't really have it when we got going on Sunday. And likewise for the rider on your screen, Eddie O'Shea. Mugello, brilliant, led for the first time, top 6 finish, and then not really where we wanted to be at last time for Eddie, down in 18th place come the Grand Prix on Sunday. But again, Eddie O'Shea probably going to be back in the main group this time around. Brno and Mugello, very, very similar circuit-wise. Last year, we did have a breakaway at the front. We did have Jose Antonio Rueda doing the business, but I've got to say that's not the norm around here. In all the Moto3 Grand Prix going back through the years, we do normally get a humdinger and a big freight train at the front.
Yeah, 100%. Lends itself well, doesn't it, to a circuit. Slipstream, really important. This is Horsepower Hill that Casey O'Gorman's powering up now, the famously named Horsepower Hill, before you get into turn 13 and turn 14, the final two corners here at the Automotodrome Brno. Phenomenal circuit, and yet, I mean, we saw this from Rueda last year, didn't we? We're seeing it from Quiles again this year. David Alonso, of course, in 2024 as well. That sometimes in Moto3, you get riders who are just able to get into a rhythm. They've got such a rhythm that it's hard for the riders behind to keep with them. And as soon as you get a second, maybe 3/4 of a second in your pocket, like Rueda did here last year, and the riders behind the baton, very easy. If you nail all your braking markers, all the corners, as Rueda did last year, it is easy to then pull the pin and really hard to reel in the riders. So hopefully for the spectacle, we don't get a runaway victor like we did last year, but of course you've got to sit back and sometimes enjoy riders that are just at the peak of their powers, and that is pretty much what Quiles has been all season long. But he had a battle on his hands here last year. He's going to have a battle on his hands again this year, I feel, because there's a lot of riders who have got to make amends for what unfolded over in Hungary. I'd say not make amends as such, probably a bit too harsh, but a lot of riders who need to begin chipping away at the championship standings. 59 points, as you might rightly mentioned, Kigo, to Alvaro Carpe. Although Carpe is on a run of 3 straight podiums, Carpe ain't in bad form, but 59 points is a lot to make up at this stage of the season. Marco Morelli, of course, now Quiles' teammate, made his debut here last year, did Marco Morelli. It was an impressive one as well on the grid Honda. So first time here on a KTM, a CF Moto. So yeah, watch out for those sorts of riders. But yeah, Quiles is definitely heading in as the favourite this weekend.
This is the number 88 of Marcos Uriarte. Worth noting, David Munoz is not here this weekend after his massive crash on the final lap over at Balaton Park. The number 88 in use this weekend for Marcos Uriarte. The crash helmet will say 89. So just keep an eye on that one. Marcos Uriarte, of course, the cousin of Brian Uriarte, who last time out did actually take the finish. He was 4th at the flag, even though he didn't really get there due to that red flag. But Brian Uriarte, likewise, in good form. Winner in Mugello, of course, and 4th last time out. Rico Salmela, let's talk about him if we can, because it was a career best finish last time out. 5th place at the checkered flag. And by my reckoning, 5th place at the Balaton circuit was the best for a Finn since Nicky Io's 5th at Mugello in 2014. Last back-to-back finish top 5s. We've got to go all the way back to Mika Kallio, 2006. Talking about the lightweight class, of course, 1, 2, 5s, Estoril and Valencia, 3rd and 2nd. So the Finns are coming back in the shape of Rico Salmela. Strong ride last time out.
Yeah, it was, and it was a great battle, wasn't it, for the final podium spot in the latter stages. Valentin Peroni, Salmela's teammate, was right in the mix. Of course, David Munoz was in the mix, Alvaro Carpe as well. It was Munoz versus what looked like a mini Red Bull Rookies Cup race with the 2 Tech 3s and the 2 IO bikes with the Uriarte in there as well. Just touching on Munoz quickly, a real shame for Munoz to pick up another big injury, fractured pelvis. I understand he's undergone a couple of surgeries to try and fix that. Turn 7 and 8. This is the section that Carpe is coming through now. This is turn 7. The stadium section is turn 8.
Guido Pini already down on the floor. Well, it's not even been 10 minutes yet, and Guido Pini has found the gravel. It looks like he has been down as the right-hand side of his leathers are all scuffed. But Guido Pini is our first crasher this year at the Czech GP, and I'm not sure you would have got massive odds on that one, but Guido Pini unfortunately finding the kitty litter once again. The yellow flags are now in. Anyone who came through that zone would have had their lap time cancelled at the moment.
Yeah, shame for Pini then. Good to see he's all okay. Hopefully he can get that bike restarted. Not sure whether that was 7 or 8. We had yellow flags at turn 7 and 8, as you saw, but they're 2 completely different corners, close together-ish, but not really. So not sure why there was turn 7 and 8 for yellow flags. But yeah, Pini didn't get round far in the Hungarian Grand Prix either. Not his fault though, of course, was contact with one of the Level Up MTA riders. Joel Esteban then went into the gravel. It was Vitelli up the inside who sort of turn 2, very obviously, as you know, a difficult opening couple of corners, especially on the opening lap when everyone's trying to fight position. Easy to come into contact with riders over at Balaton Park. Patelli was judged to have pushed Pini. Pini went down, and that shoved Esteban into the gravel as well. So, yeah, not a good start to the weekend for Pini. But back to the topic we were talking about, Rico Salmela. Fantastic from the Finn to be in that group and fighting for a podium. Of course, it got red flagged with the Munoz crash, sending our best wishes to Munoz, of course. Hopefully we see the 64 back on track as soon as possible. Had a rotten run of luck of injuries and big crashes in the last few months as Munoz, so fingers crossed he's going to be back. I imagine it will be post-summer break now, but fingers crossed whenever he does come back he's fully fit and can be challenging for victories again. But yeah, kudos to Salmela. Great to see the rookie on the number 27 machine fighting back in the podium fight. First top 5 since the United States Grand Prix for Salmela. Just had a little bit of a dip in form. That's understandable. He is a rookie, still learning his trade in the class, but he's been an impressive rider so far this year and a really exciting talent, I've got to say. I'm really intrigued to see how he goes for the rest of the season and, of course, into his sophomore season next year as well.
Obviously, it was his first proper top 5 because the other one is courtesy of Adrian Fernandez getting disqualified. A top 5 is a top 5, but it's the first one he's done on his own, it's got to be said, for Rico Salmela. And also qualifying was pretty strong as well, up there in 6th place on the grid on Saturday in Hungary, so that was his best qualifying as well. So he really got on with the track. Might be a little bit of a bonus that not everyone as well is quite up to speed there. They're still trying to work it out. It was only our second visit there, whereas somewhere like Brno, there will be riders who know this place well. It's an easier track to learn. It's got a lot more natural flow to it. So it might be a bit more difficult this weekend. But Salmela in good form at the moment, 6th place in this session as well at the moment. We see Cormac Buchanan flick through. This is Ryusei Yamanaka. Ryusei Yamanaka's season is just not getting much better at all. Missed the points in the last 2 GPs, 16th and 17th. He has missed qualifying 2 last time out as well. He was plumb last on the practice timesheets over in Hungary. So Ryusei Yamanaka, whatever's going on down there, he definitely needs to step it up a gear. Someone who doesn't need to step it up a gear as much, though, is David Almanza. He's had back-to-back pole positions. He's on for 3 in a row. That would be something rather spectacular. It is worth noting, though, that really Almanza's pace last time out, I think that was as close as we've seen him in the first 2 rounds. It's obviously been a bit of an injury hit season for him following on from that Goiânia crash, but I think last time out at Balaton Park when he was giving Max Kielers a bit of a headache in the opening half of the race, it was the first time where we can say, yep, that's the David Almanza that we saw back in Buriram and back in Goiânia pre-injury.
Yeah, I'd say performance of the weekend, to be honest, for David Almanza. Last time out in Hungary, okay, Kielers went on to win the race, but that was sort of to be expected going into the weekend. Almanza didn't do any training at all, was in hospital for 3 days leading up to the Hungarian Grand Prix. Of course, after sticking it on pole position over at Mugello, didn't have any time on the bike, then went out in practice and was quick out of the block straight away. First time at Balaton Park on the KTM as well. As Kiko mentioned, of course, stuck it on pole position and was the only rider really to get within touching distance of Kielers. Kielers ran away with it in the end, but Almanza was again well ahead of the chasing pack, fighting for the final podium spot. So I was really, really impressed with Almanza. He's gelled with that KTM and in the Liquid Moly Dynavolt Intact GP team superbly in 2026. Didn't have any doubts that Almanza would be a podium finisher and a race-winning contender this season, but I've got to say, I didn't expect him to be this fast, this quickly, and the injury troubles he has had, the illness he had, of course, a couple of weeks ago as well, meant that this season has been outstanding, to be honest, for the number 22, and sounds like he's pretty much fully fit now coming into the Czech Grand Prix, which is good to hear. So really intrigued and quite excited actually to see what the 22 can do and if he can take it once again to Kielers.
Indeed, and it's worth as well noting with Almanza that this is his first time, as it is for almost all the tracks that we go to now, his first time here with KTM, but the KTM was really the bike to be on around here last year. I think the best Honda was only 6th, and that was Adrian Fernandez's teammate. Almanza was just behind that. So really, the KTM is the package to be on, and as far as the actual KTM to be on. If you're not on really the Little Moly Dynavolt one or the Red Bull IO or Tech 3 ones, then you know, they're your two reference teams, let's say. They're your two teams where you look at them and they've got it all dialed in and sorted out. Oh, more yellow flags. Where are they this time? As we work our way through turns 8 and 9, looking at Vader Pratama, our timing monitor, and as you can see the graphic on the top of the screen, we have a yellow flag, and it's for Rico Salmella, but we're still awaiting confirmation on exactly where that is. I can tell you up here in commentary, we don't have any notification on our timing speed, so just get it now at turn 6. So Rico Salmella, just as we were singing his praises, I was found the sand pit rather early on, and unfortunately that's going to interrupt his session, which round here you really could do without. It's a long lap here. You're going to get less laps in a session than you normally would anywhere else, just by virtue of the fact that this is over 5 kilometres in length. It is a long old place round here.
It is. Apologies to Rico for singing his praises and then inducting a commentator's curse, a little one to start the weekend with. Unfortunately, turn 6 is a bit of a weird one actually to crash at. You come out of 4, down the hill into turn 5, and then the 6 is the right-hander before you then flick it left through 7 into the stadium section before you then power it down to turn 8. Don't really, from memory, recall too many riders going down at turn 6. Salmella was all okay, of course. We're going to get a replay of it here now. This is coming into the final couple of corners, turn 13 and 14. The last overtaking opportunity properly, you'd say, is turn 13, but we have seen races won and lost around the final corner at 14. A couple of different lines. It's where Quiles actually finished ahead of David Munoz last year, getting sort of a wider sweeping line coming through the final corner and getting the power down to the line. Famous, of course, the Jorge Lorenzo, Danny Pedrosa battle, I remember, coming into the final 2 corners as well. When was that?
5.
Actually, the viewpoint we get coming out of turn 1. Out in practice, was quick out of the block straight away, first time at Balaton Park on the KTM as well. As Kiko mentioned, of course, stuck it on pole position and was the only rider really to get within touching distance of Quiles. Quiles ran away with it in the end, but Almanza was again well ahead of the chasing pack, fighting for the final podium spot. So I was really, really impressed with Almanza. He's gelled with that KTM and in the Liquid Moly Dynavolt Intact GP team superbly in 2026. Didn't have any doubts that Almanza would be a podium finisher and a race-winning contender this season, but I've got to say, I didn't expect him to be this fast, this quickly, and the injury troubles he has had, the illness he had, of course, a couple of weeks ago as well, meant that this season has been outstanding, to be honest, for the number 22, and sounds like he's pretty much fully fit now coming into the Czech Grand Prix, which is good to hear. So really intrigued and quite excited actually to see what the 22 can do and if he can take it once again to Quiles.
Indeed, and it's worth as well noting with Almanza that this is his first time, as it is for almost all the tracks that we go to now, his first time here with KTM, but the KTM was really the bike to be on around here. Last year, I think the best Honda was only 6th, and that was Adrian Fernandez's teammate. Almanza was just behind that. So really, the KTM is the package to be on, and as far as the actual KTM to be on, if you're not on really the Little Moly Dynavolt one or the Red Bull IO or Tech 3 ones, then you know, they're your two reference teams, let's say. They're your two teams where you look at them and they've got it all dialed in and sorted out. Oh, more yellow flags. Where are they this time? As we work our way through turns 8 and 9, looking at Vader Pratama, our timing monitor, and as you can see the graphic on the top of the screen, we have a yellow flag, and it's for Rico Salmella, but we're still awaiting confirmation on exactly where that is. I can tell you up here in commentary, we don't have any notification on our timing speed, so just get it now at turn 6. So Rico Salmella, just as we were singing his praises, I was found the sand pit rather early on, and unfortunately that's going to interrupt his session, which round here you really could do without. It's a long lap here. You're going to get less laps in a session than you normally would anywhere else, just by virtue of the fact that this is over 5 kilometres in length. It is a long old place round here.
It is. Apologies to Rico for singing his praises and then inducting a commentator's curse, a little one to start the weekend with, unfortunately. Turn 6 is a bit of a weird one, actually, to crash at. You come out of 4, down the hill into turn 5, and then the 6 is the right-hander before you then flick it left through 7 into the stadium section before you then power it down to turn 8. Don't really, from memory, recall too many riders going down at turn 6. Sam Eller was all okay, of course. We're going to get a replay of it here. No, this is coming into the final couple of corners, turn 13 and 14. The last overtaking opportunity properly, you'd say, is turn 13, but we have seen races won and lost around the final corner at 14. A couple of different lines. It's where Quiles actually finished ahead of David Munoz last year, getting sort of a wider sweeping line coming through the final corner and getting the power down to the line. Famous, of course, the Jorge Lorenzo, Danny Pedrosa battle, I remember, coming into the final 2 corners as well. When was that? 2012, I
Correct.
think it was.
Yep.
Yeah, great end to the lap, coming up the hill into the final couple of corners. I mean, as we've mentioned, it's just a phenomenal circuit. I love, actually, the viewpoint we get coming out of turn 1 into turn 2 when they flick it over the curbs and power it into the forest down into turn 3. I do love that section. But yeah, Sam Eller looking all okay, thankfully. Not seen anything on Peony either, so a couple of early crashes as well, so has experience around here on the KTM as well as Ariarte, but no, very impressive. He was, of course, deputising for Munoz over in, sorry, was it Munoz or Almanza? I think it was Munoz.
Well, neither were there.
Neither were there. So yeah, he was the only intact GP rider. So it was both of them. They can't ride both bikes, of course, but he was the only intact GP rider over in Austin, and finished in the points there as well. So he's already got points on the board as a replacement rider this year as Ariarte, and he's yeah, putting his name on the table for a full-time job, absolutely, next season. If he continues to do this, coming in for stand-in rides, and you're putting yourself inside that top 10, it's going to raise some eyebrows.
I've got to say though, was he 88 back in Kota? I don't seem to remember him being
I've got him noted down as 89 back in
Yeah,
Kota,
I had
so
him down as 88.
his name on the table for
back in Kota. Oh, that's all they need of then. Answers on a postcard, preferably on a tweet though, it's a bit quicker. Marcus Ariarte, number 88 then, in 8th place at the moment. Jesus Rios going very well at the minute. This is a nice little run that Jesus Rios is putting together at the moment. Rios there in 7th place. He's the 2nd Honda in the leaderboards at the moment. Joel Kelso is the top one for Michael Laverty's Grid M Lab team up there in P4. Rios got out a little bit sideways on down in towards turn 13, but anchored it up nicely. Coming through the final corner. Let's see what Rios has got great reference in Marco Morelli. Morelli's going to take the line first. He's 3rd at the moment. Does go P1, Rios goes 4th, so 206.180 for Marco Morelli, puts him 64 thousandths ahead of his teammate. It is an Aspar 1-2 as things stand. Moto3 FP1 with 13 minutes on the clock. Just behind them, Hakim Danish, Rios, as we said, there in 4th, and Kelso in 5th. Carpe Peroni, Uriarte, Marcus Variety, Uriarte, Brian Variety, and then Adrian Cruces completely top 10.
Yeah, good stuff. Morelli then, as mentioned previously, did make his Moto3 debut here last year on that Honda. Ran wide at turn 1 over at Ballerton Park, which cost him a chance of properly getting into the podium mix. But was pretty pleased, I think, with his race. Was Marco Morelli, and just said he did get a great start, but ran slightly wide at turn 1. He actually said, I'd lost my bearings going into turn 1. He wasn't the only rider to do that, it's got to be said, and that affected his whole race. Basically, we know that the Ballerton Park circuit is quite a tricky one to overtake at, and if you're in a group and you've all got similar pace, you've got to make some pretty aggressive moves to try and pick your way through the order, but he did a decent job of that, did Morelli, and finished P7 over the line. 100% points record so far in 2026, really consistent in terms of the points. If you look at the championship standings, it suggests that Morelli has been a little bit inconsistent, but I don't think that is the case. He's always been quick, Morelli. I think he just needs to iron out a couple of things. Basically the starts of the races. I remember over at the Catalan Grand Prix, and of course in Jerez as well, when he reeled in the chasers, the leaders. At the end of the race, Marco Morelli is absolutely superb, arguably as good as anyone on the grid at this moment in time, but the start of the races, Morelli is struggling a little bit so far this season, but he's chipping away at things, and he's having a quietly impressive season on the Aspar 97. Of course, a lot of the limelight has been stolen, rightly so, by his teammate Maximo Quiles, so that's probably helping Morelli as well. But third in the championship, 93 points away from Quiles, but a couple of podiums already so far this season. Brazil, of course, most famous when he was really challenging Quiles and actually looked a little bit quicker. Quiles did well actually to hold Marco Morelli off, but yeah, been impressed with Morelli so far this season, and just needs to have a clean getaway, a clean opening laps, and get himself in that sort of top 5, top 6 mix, and then I really think Morelli can have a proper go at winning a Grand Prix very soon.
Morelli's sequence since Guyana, we touched on this last time out, has been top 10, no top 10, top 10, no top 10. And that carried on last time out. He was 13th in Mugello and then 7th last time out in the Grand Prix in Hungary. So you get the feeling that with Morelli, it is more, it's not so much his inconsistency, it's about ironing out the differences in where he's finishing. He needs to be way more consistent in that top 10 if he's to really put in a solid season-long sustained charge at finishing third overall. Of course, he's still well within mathematical contention of the title, but I don't think anyone's expecting that in his first proper rookie season that he can fight for the title. We're looking at Zen Matani, who is down in 24th place at the moment. He did take points now in 2026, courtesy of Adrian Fernandez's disqualification. I make it it would have been in Guyana where that has come in, and likewise in Le Mans. So a couple of points on the board for Zen Matani. This is his first time here though at Brno. I mean, the track is perhaps not the most complicated to learn. I think it's a lot easier to learn than say Mugello, but it's pretty difficult to be mega consistent all the way through the race, because there's a few corners with a few bumps, there's a few undulations, and also passing's not a premium. You can make good easy passes around here. The problem is if you're in a big group, then it's a little bit hard to defend against that, so you don't want to be shuffled back down the field either.
Yeah, Matani explained that the Balaton Park circuit last time out was arguably his most difficult weekend of the season. A lot of riders were saying about Balaton Park going there for the first time. I know Jacob Brewster in Moto2 was saying this as well, that it's a very difficult circuit to learn and be quick at straight away. There's so many stop and go corners, so many braking zones you've got to get right. Such a naturally circuit at times. So I think, yeah, coming to a circuit like Brno, it must be, not speaking from experience of course, but it must be a bit more fun to ride, fast and flowing, and you can sort of get to grips with it a little bit quicker than when you're constantly having to be hard on the anchors and then on the gas and then hard on the anchors again. You can sort of get into a nice flow around a circuit like this, and we're seeing Marco Morelli in a nice flow now. Not going to go P1 as things stand on this lap, but it's a nice little run coming together for the Argentine. A
lot of the riders were saying that over in Balaton there is no reference. It's very hard to get into a stride, it's very hard to build a rhythm. The track is pretty featureless. There's not really any natural reference, whereas here you can't move for natural references. There's trees, there's curbing, there's different approaches into corners. They're downhill, some are uphill, some are straight line braking, others are long right-handers. This is the Schwantz corner at the very bottom at turn 10, and you go down and then back up, and this starts that massive climb, but there's always a reference all the way around here at Brno. It's one of the easier tracks to learn. We have seen a few riders take their first wins here at Brno over the course of the years, most notably of course back in 1996 some chap called Valentino Rossi doing it in the 125cc class, but since then we've had a few more. So Brno is probably one of the easier ones to learn by the force that you've just got so much more natural flow, and there are a lot more references to try and help you learn this track. Morelli goes across the line, doesn't improve his time, but John Lesterman's going gangbusters here with just under 7 minutes to go. Comes up through the penultimate chicane at 11 and 12. He's a 10th under what Marco Morelli was able to do. Good to see Joel Esteban back on the pace, because he was a little bit missing in Hungary. 20th on the grid and 13th in the GP. That's not really where we expected Joel Kelso to be. his qualifying needs to improve as well. In 2 of the last 4 GPs, he's missed Q2. So gotta say that Joel Esteban maybe needs to iron out qualifying, and because when he does, he's quick in the race as well.
Yeah, Esteban has been a little bit inconsistent, hasn't he? He got caught out in that turn 2 drama, let's say, between his teammate and Guido Pini. That shoved him into the gravel. So to be fair to Esteban, I think he did quite well to get back into the points. But it's been a pretty up and down season so far. Was on pole back in Brazil, of course, as well. Was top 5 in Mugello, but then sandwiched in between that was a P14 in Barcelona and a P13 last time out in Hungary. Was 4th in France, was 9th in Jerez as well. So yeah, it's been a decent season so far for Esteban, but yeah, a little bit too up and down for Alessandro Tanucci and Joel Esteban's liking. Tanucci, the team manager, of course, at Level Up MTA. Nice little slow-mo shot of Esteban doing his thing, setting the fastest lap of the session so far, and his 10th fastest lap. That's the final corner of turn 14. But yeah, promising signs early in the weekend for Joel Esteban to maybe have another little podium push. He was well in the mix over in Brazil before we had a big crash. So yeah, Esteban, I think it's definitely coming, the podium this year. It just needs to sort of flatline his inconsistency.
Almanza goes P1 and 206.068 it is for the number 22 as we are entering now the final 5 minutes, and as you can see on your screens, we have got red sectors absolutely everywhere. Alvaro Carpe is in the final 2 corners and absolutely flying. This is turn 14, carry the speed, and then on the power to the line. Let's see what Carpe's got. This could be the first 205 of the weekend thus far, and it is a 205.8. He lost a little bit of time in that final sector. Esteban going great guns once again, and this is the 2nd lap in succession that Joel Esteban has been going very, very strongly. Coming through 13, and this is 14. I think he's just behind Rico Salmela, so Salmela's managed to get out there back on track. Esteban to the line. Let's see what the 78 has got. Is it P1? Yes, it is. And the goalpost moved that a little bit more. A 2:05.795 this time around. That's less than a second off the lap record, of course, around here in Moto3, which was all set last year down in the low 2:05. So just keep an eye on that as we move through the rest of this weekend. Not so much in the next 4 minutes or so, but probably later on in practice. Danish going well as well, 4/10 under, half a second under as he comes into that final sector.
Sort of proves the point that Brno is an easy circuit to learn. Esteban here for the first time in Moto3, and Hakim Danish, of course, here for the first time in Moto3 as well. It's a phenomenal lap coming in from the Malaysian, who had his race cut short, unfortunately, after a turn 5 incident with Rouchet Moodley. Moodley, unfortunately, taking the blame for that one down at turn 5, which cost both of them a chance of finishing inside the points. Around the final corner, Danish comes on the 13, and this is looking very strong, getting into the lower ends of the 205s, are we? Mid 205s, but nevertheless, a great lap. Lost a little bit of time in the final split, but good stuff from Danish, the rookie, of course, here for the first time, and goes P1, so top job.
Very strong stuff from the Malaysian. His point sequence has come to an end, of course, with that crash last time out. He was on for what would have been a 7th point scoring finish, but unfortunately didn't get to the end of lap 1. He did head back out, but really it was only a data gathering exercise. Carpe coming underneath Ramersdorfer down in towards 13. Less than 3 minutes on the clock as Carpe chasing that first win, isn't he, El? There's been a few riders who have had to wait long. I think back to David Munoz, who was speaking about it at great length last year. And Munoz did get the monkey off his back. Carpe, will it come this weekend? He's 2nd at the moment and less than half a tenth off the top time set by Danish just a moment ago. We still got a few red sectors out there. Almanza's on a good lap through the opening sector. Danish likewise. So there's a little bit of time left in this track yet, but it bodes very, very well for later on in the afternoon. Now, when temperatures do come up, of course, that might well just halt any big gains. But the track in great nick already. 2:05.4 straight out the crate is pretty good in Moto3.
Yeah, exactly that. 2:05.0 set from P&E last year is the all-time lap record. So Carpe getting towards Danish's fastest time so far, and yeah, that maiden win in Moto3 that you spoke about for Carpe, gotta feel it's coming soon. Fair play to Carpe for rolling out a Sunday in Hungary that he needed to after a disappointing qualifying session. Was on P18 on the grids and came across the line to finish on the podium. 3 consecutive podiums now for the first time in Moto3, and he hasn't seen the flag, Carpe, outside of the top 4 so far this year. So when he's seen the flag, he's been well in the hunt. Of course, with Quiles winning 5 times already this season, that's why the gap is at 59 points. But Carpe is in a really strong run of form, and a good run of form on that lap was Hakim Danish. Top job into the 204s and
a new lap record, a 204.938 for the Malaysian with just less than 60 seconds on the clock. So we said Danish was going great guns in the opening sector, as was Almanza, and it was Danish who got the lap all completed and done across the line. He found a lot of time in the second half of that lap as well, I can tell you. So Hakim Danish absolutely flying around here, and like what you said, Al, it really does emphasise what we were saying about this place being a bit easy to learn, because there's not so many hard braking areas, hard stopping areas. You know, you can really carry a lot of speed and momentum, and that's something you absolutely can't do last time out in Balaton Park, where it's riddled with chicanes, let's say. Scott Ogden just moves up into the top 6, so good job from the Brit there, number 19, the second off, but in the top 6, that's a bit more like it from the rider from Doncaster. As we pick up the chasing field, this is down in towards the Schwantz corner. Casey O'Gorman, the Irishman, in 10th place at the moment, just looking up the rear end of Adrian Fernandez. I've got to say, I haven't seen Guido Pini, neither Matteo Battelli get back out onto the track after their crashes. Salmela, yes, but the other 2, no. So that's going to be a very big and important Moto3 practice coming up later on. The checkered flag is out. Joel Esteban and Salmela have already taken it. These guys are going to be the next ones across the line. Fernandez and O'Gorman. You get the feeling O'Gorman is being slowed up a bit here by Adrian Fernandez. Coming to the line, let's see. Fernandez at the moment is in 9th place. O'Gorman 10th. Does O'Gorman move up at all? Yes, he does, into the top 6. Good job by Casey O'Gorman to put himself up there in 6th place, and that is top Honda honours at the moment. Let's see what Joel Kelso's got in the final sector.
Yeah, good luck coming in for Kelso. Good job from O'Gorman to get inside that top 6. Kelso just chasing the top 2 from Balaton Park. Quiles shadowed by David Almanza, who is then shadowed by Joel Kelso. Kelso coming around the final corner now, fire it out of turn 14 and fire it to the checkered flag. Quiles, then Almanza, and then Joel Kelso. Personal best for Kelso, yes it is, and a P4 time to go with it to claim top Honda honours in FP1. So good job from the 66.
Good job indeed. The top 7 all inside the 205s. In the case of Danish, he's in the 204s, but my point is that the pace is instantly quick. 8th place for Ogden at the moment, 206.004, and that's just a fraction of a second ahead of Marco Morelli, and then there's Adrian Fernandez who completes the top 10. A second covers the top 7, so gaps perhaps a little bit bigger than what we normally see, as Alvaro Carpe does exceed track limits by quite some margin. That lap will go away from him anyway. Ogden comes across the line, no improvement that time around, a 206 though for the number 19. So Hakim Danish, the Malaysian, bouncing back again from his Hungary disappointment with a new lap record, the 204.938. That is not the way you're supposed to end Moto3 FP1 if you're Joel Esteban. That's the service road, and that looks like it's gone kaput rather than he's gone through the gravel. So maybe a technical problem down there for the number 78.
Yeah, trying to get it going. Of course, you can't do that on the side of the circuit. You've got to hop onto the service road, which is what Joel Esteban has done. So not quite a massive amount of drama by the looks of things for Esteban, but not the start of the weekend that level up MCA would have wanted, with Battelli having a massive high side and Esteban having maybe a technical issue. Is this what happened? No, it's a big moment for Brian Ariarte. That's
in the sand pit, and he done very, very well to keep hold of that coming through the exit of the Schwantz corner. So Brian Ariarte, great job there. The number 51 just able to keep it all on its wheels, and the 51, where did he end that session? 12th place, so a pretty solid, steady start. No prizes, of course, for Moto3 FP1. You can't win anything. You can just make your weekend a lot harder if you do throw it at the scenery. But I'll tell you what you can win is a load of momentum, and that is Hakim Danish's run of form at the minute. Very unlucky last time out. We can almost put Hungary to one side, but fantastic to see. The number 13 has really come into Moto3 and lived up to some of the expectation that we had for him.
Yeah, 100%. Was P1 on Friday over in Barcelona, ended that with a top 6 finish, and then of course was on the podium back in Magellan.
Well, Hakim Danish leads the way then, the only rider in the 204s ever in Moto3. But expect that to change later on. Conditions perfect here in the Czech Republic. David Almanza there in second, Alvaro Carpe third, Kelso fourth, championship leader Max Giles rounding out your top five. Esteban with technical problems right at the end of the session. Not ideal for him. He's there in sixth. We work our way down through the order. Valentin Peroni, another slow start on Friday morning. Tim, we almost didn't see anything of him in that session. 15th for the number 73. Further down the order, you'll see Marcus Uriarte there in 17th. He's in place for David Munoz. Guido Pini down there in 26th place, but that is because he pretty much didn't set any valid laps, only the two of them, and he was a crasher and did not get back out. I'm talking about, I'm on my way out. Moto3 done, Moto2 coming up next. Lewis Sotheby has moved in alongside Elliot York. Enjoy!
It's a very good morning to you from Brno. This is the Czech Grand Prix, one of the destination events of the season as we head at breakneck speed through this summer run of races, which has already taken us to the classics of Jerez, of Le Mans, of the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, and in the next 4 weeks, 3 more to come. Brno, the Cathedral of Speed Assen next weekend, and of course before we all head off on our summer holidays, the Sachsenring and the German Grand Prix in mid-July. The summer heat wave is very much rolling through this part of the world at the moment. Scorching temperatures expected through today, tomorrow and into Sunday. But piling on the pressure and bringing the heat in Moto2 right now is Manu Gonzalez, who arrives here on the back of 3 consecutive Moto2 victories. He really has a stranglehold now on the Intermediate World Championship. 49.5 points is his advantage over Ethan Guevara, who found himself on the wrong side of the stewards at Balaton Park 2 weeks ago, which contributed to his difficult afternoon from pole position. But you'll see in the grandstands and on the hillsides that envelop this beautiful Brno circuit a lot of number 12s. This is the reason as we welcome you to Moto2 Free Practice 1 for the first time this weekend. I'm Lewis Sotheby. Alongside me is Elliot York. Yeah, Manu Gonzalez leads the World Championship, but quite rightly, let's let Philip Salac take top billing. Good morning, Al.
Good morning, mate. Hello to everyone just tuning in for Moto2 FP1, and I'm sure a lot of Czech fans are tuning in to Moto2 this weekend, and of course coming to the circuit as well. Hopefully we get a few more people flooding in to Brno after Philip Salac took a quite brilliant podium last time out. It was of course only the brilliance of Manu Gonzalez who was able to topple the Czech rider last time out, and so good to see Salac back in the mix, back in the podium mix. He's now scored back-to-back top 5s for the first time actually in Moto2, which I was quite surprised at running through his results. But it's a run of form now. Salac, it wasn't just a one-off. He's really picked up the momentum, and great to see the Czech rider standing on the podium for the first time in a couple of years, and really emotional afterwards as well. He was explaining that he's had some very tough times at home, was out of a ride basically at the end of last year, wasn't even sure he was going to be back, and there you can see a big Salac sign, the Czech flags of course, and everyone here, whether they've obviously got MotoGP allegiances or not, will be supporting Salac. Always great to have a home rider at the top of the sort of pecking order, and great to see fans flocking into a circuit and celebrating the only rider on the grids, whether that's Malaysia for Hakim Diniz, for example, Indonesia for Veda Pratama and Mario Aji, but here it is all about Filip Salac. And yeah, coming into it off the back of the podium, couldn't have timed it any better, could he? Salac, and was just great, because it's not been the easiest couple of years for Salac. He's had a couple of decent performances, but none like that, and none where a weekend he looked so strong. And it was, as I say, Manu Gonzalez, championship leader, was the only rider to be able to lay a finger on Filip Salac. Those two were the pick of the bunch over in Hungary, and it has been Manu Gonzalez who's been pick of the bunch so far in 2026.
Gonzalez looking to achieve something this weekend that only 2 riders previously have done in the Moto2 World Championship since it took over from the 250s in 2010. That is to win 4 consecutive Grand Prix. The 2 previously to achieve it, Tony Elias on his way to that very first Moto2 title back in 2010, and Fermin Aldeguer in that incredible run he had at the end of 2023 after Pedro Acosta had won the World Championship. Aldeguer won everything in sight. Those are the only 2 riders to take 4 consecutive Moto2 victories. Feels as if it's going to take something quite special to deny Manu Gonzalez this weekend with the red-hot form that he's in. Of course, rumours persist as to whether that's going to earn him a place on the MotoGP calendar. And with potential news in the coming hours and days, which might bring forward some rider announcements for the future in MotoGP. Perhaps we will start to get some genuine answers as to how the MotoGP grid is going to look next year, and whether Manu Gonzalez is going to be a part of it. David Alonso on your screens a moment ago as he continues his run without a podium finish. Tayo Forosato here on the screen. His wait for a World Championship point or 2 has finally ended in Moto2, as you can see there on screens. 2 he picked up at the Hungarian Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago. Forosato, I guess, part of a rookie crop who are gradually making steps forward in this 2026 season. We'll talk as we get through the session about the likes of Jose Antonio Rueda and Alberto Ferrandez, who impressed in Hungary, but the rookies are very much getting up to speed at the moment. Alonso Lopez, 7th in the World Championship, who I guess can win the award, El, for the most optimistic late breaker at the starting peloton.
Yeah, watching that back, I mean, watching it first and foremost, you guys were commentating on it as well. Everyone thought, who is that and what are they doing? Lopez got it a bit wrong, didn't he? And Salac actually mentions that, because it was Lopez overtook about 6 or 7 riders going into turn 1, was lucky actually to not collect anyone, was so far up the inside and so late. That could have ended not too greatly, as we of course then saw in MotoGP an hour or so later on. But Lopez lucky not to collect anyone, and lucky not to collect Filip Salac. Salac mentioned he had to sit up and was quite spooked actually by Lopez torpedoing his way up the inside. Thankfully it didn't lead to anything, and Salac of course went on to finish on the podium. A rider who didn't end up on the podium was this rider, Ethan Guevara, 2nd in the championship, of course, still 2nd in the championship, and some drama, shall we call it, off the start as well. We talked about Lopez getting away a little bit too quickly into turn 1. Guevara got a decent start, was up inside that top 3 from pole position, but was adjudged to be unsafe off the line. We saw that here last year, didn't we, with Barry Bautas off pole position. Here he is, right on cue. Which obviously led to Guevara having a long lap penalty, and never really got going after that, unfortunately, for Guevara. I don't think Guevara in the end had the pace to go with Gonzalez or Salac, or maybe even Senna Aegis, who finished in 3rd place, of course. So to be honest, it looked like what Guevara picked up, which was a P6, was probably all he was going to be able to achieve anyway. We don't know that, of course. Lost around about 3 seconds in the long lap penalty loop. But yeah, a little bit of a disappointing end to what was, to be honest, a difficult weekend for Guevara. So many troubles on Friday with that front end. Had that early crash, of course, down at turn 5 in free practice 1, and struggled throughout Friday. And to be fair to Guevara, a magnificent job to stick it on pole position. So I think if you'd have asked Guevara and the team on Friday morning, would you take a P6 on Sunday, I think the answer would have been a yes.
Yeah, he was another rider who was inconvenienced by Alonso Lopez's braking for an entirely different corner to everybody else at the start in Hungary. Figures in your ears, Celestino Vietti and Ethan Guevara. If you're potentially listening to this later on, Boscoscuro/Speed Up have never won here at Brno. Of course, we did miss 4 years or so of action here from 2020 until our return last year. But of the 12 Moto2 encounters to be held around this circuit, 8 of them have been won by Kalex. We've had a couple of Suter wins. Those came virtue of Andrea Iannone and Marc Marquez back in the very early days of the Moto2 class. KTM and Moriwaki a victory apiece around here too. The 54 of the 24 of Tony Elias back in that occasion, the Moriwaki winner in 2020. The 54 you saw there of Alberto Ferrandez. Bit of a good news, bad news weekend, wasn't it, for the Blue Crew Pramac team? We've touched on Guevara's various adventures. His teammate Ferrandez finished behind him, but was by far the happier of the two at the end of the weekend. Ferrandez, his best weekend by some distance in his Moto2 career so far, finishing up inside the top 10 in 9th place, a result that Alex De Angelis was very keen to point out, the team manager, sporting director, whatever you want to call him, down there in Pramac, that was a result achieved entirely on merit.
Yeah, top job from Ferrandez, and you know, it wasn't one that sort of came out of nowhere. It was 5th fastest on Friday and just kept that rhythm going throughout the weekend. Actually qualified down in P17, so a little bit out of position on the grid, you've got to say. So to get from P17 on a circuit like Balaton Park as well, which is notoriously difficult to overtake at, to get inside that top 10, was a really, really strong stuff from Ferrandez. No expectations, I think, from anyone other than outside of the team, really, to see what Ferrandez would have done this year. I don't think anyone would have expected Ferrandez to be finishing inside that top 10 on a regular basis. So fair play to the number 54 to get himself inside that top 10. And genuinely looking pretty good, looking pretty strong since, you know, a couple of rounds ago. He's not had the points finishes in the last 2, but was in the points over in France as well. So yeah, that was a sort of weekend maybe that ignites his season and can, you know, not necessarily push him to finish on the podium. I think that's expecting a little bit too much, such is the calibre, of course, of the riders who are fighting for podiums and victories. So I don't think anyone's expecting that, but to, you know, finish in the points more often and nick a top 10 or 2, I think that's got to be the aim now for Ferrandez for the rest of the season.
And he's made Q2 in 2 of the last 3 Grand Prix automatically, has Alberto Ferrandez. Hasn't gone on to translate that into a place at the front end of the grid, 17th in his last 2 qualifying sessions, but certainly taking strides in the right direction. FP1 is underway. Let's just tidy up some loose ends from Hungary and also some riders to inform you about their returns from injury. Here's Ivan Ortola. This is the loose end that we needed to tie up as he wiped out Dani Munoz in the middle of turn 3. The Hungarian Grand Prix, very difficult to blame anyone other than Ivan Ortola, and the FIA MotoGP stewards were in agreement as the flames licked from the MSI Kalex. Well, it feels like his Czech Grand Prix weekend has already gone up in flames. Ivan Ortola causing a crash, first offence, long lap penalty. Before we go on to the various injury issues for this weekend, I don't think Ivan Ortola can have many complaints with that.
No, agreed. Unfortunately, you know, it's 2 riders going for the same circuit, but same piece of track, I should say. But yeah, Ortola up the insides. Dani Munoz obviously trying to come back onto line as well. Munoz can't really see him. Munoz nothing to really do with the crash. Wasn't his fault. And yeah, Ortola, I think when he looks back at that, will think, yeah, fair enough. That was probably more my fault than Munoz, and a long lap penalty to serve in the race. I think, to be fair, the long lap penalty here isn't as long as a lot of other circuits. Who was it last year in Moto2? Marcos Ramirez.
Twice
had a long lap penalty and still had a decent result, did Ramirez. And looking at the race from last year, didn't lose too much time either. So that's a nice little thing for Ortola to try and look at. Of course, Ortola will carry it around the outside of turn 6.
That's the problem for Celestino Vietti there, isn't it? At the top of the picture, out of turn 11. Don't know whether he's crashed or whether he's stopped. Certainly has come to a stop. Whether it's due to a mistake from him or the motorcycle packing up, we'll have to wait and see, as he is now pushed out of the gravel trap. Of course, Ethan Guevara on his outlap, a fellow Boscoscuro rider. He had problems back in Hungary in free practice 1 when he decked it at turn 5. And Celestino Vietti, as mentioned, at a circuit that Boscoscuro have never won at, has already found himself in some early trouble. Technical problems, we understand, with the Boscoscuro.
Yeah, unfortunate start to the weekend then for Vietti's. That's 2 weekends in a row. Guevara in FP1 in Hungary, and now Celestino Vietti here in Brno. two of the main contenders, two closest contenders to Manuel Gonzalez in the championship, suffering some early drama. Good news for Gonzalez, of course, but not very good news for the riders who are trying to chase him down in the championship. So yeah, intrigued to see what the cause of that issue was for Vietti, and if he can get out pretty quickly. Obviously experience around here is Vietti, but will not want to miss valuable track time in FP1.
You might have just caught a glimpse of that long lap penalty loop there coming through turn 7. It earned a bit of notoriety, didn't it, the long lap penalty here, when John Zarco expertly tackled it back in the 2020 Czech Grand Prix. Here's Angel Piqueras. So yeah, let's pick up the injury issues. Piqueras returns, I guess is the best way of calling it, even though he did go to the Hungarian Grand Prix, of course withdrew prior to qualifying, so still has only started in his Moto2 career officially just the once. Angel Piqueras described himself as not 100% comfortable and felt he was putting himself at risk of crashing and hurting himself again, so decided not to proceed with the rest of the weekend in Hungary after free practice 2. But as you saw there, he is back on track alongside his teammate Ortola, who has the long lap penalty to serve. Sergio Garcia is another rider worth drawing attention to from an injury point of view. Now, of course, we did see him race and finish in Hungary last time out. Came across the line in P20. He has undergone arm pump surgery since we last saw him on his right forearm. That surgery was 8 days ago. So Garcia has essentially been declared fit for free practice 1, and he will be reviewed at the end of this session to determine whether he will take any further part beyond this session in the rest of the weekend. And as you saw in Hungary, Mario Aggi absent through injury. His absence continues this weekend, so it's a second opportunity this weekend for Jacob Ralston to earn his stripes in Moto2.
Yeah, good to see Piqueras back on board. Spoke to him in qualifying last time out in Balaton Park, and obviously had that crash, didn't he, on the Saturday morning, I think it was, or the Friday afternoon, can't quite remember, all sort of moulds into one, but had a big crash over in Hungary, did Piqueras, and I think understandably and rightly said, okay, enough's enough this weekend. I've got back on the bike and shown some decent pace, to be fair. So another week of training, a little bit of rest, of course, as well, heading into the Czech Grand Prix. So good to see Piqueras back on board. He's up inside that top 10 in these early exchanges as well, which is good to see from the 36. And yeah, good to see Jacob Ralston having another chance, another crack at the whip on the Honda team. Asia Kalex described the weekend in Hungary as a very difficult one in terms of jumping on that Kalex rides a Boscura over in the Moto2 European Championship, so jumping on a different chassis in Moto2 for the first time on a circuit like Balaton Park, which is so technical and so tricky to work out. Yeah, the Australian had a tricky time things. Of course, he also had a big crash which affected him on Sunday as well. But good to see Ralston back on board that bike on a circuit he knows from last year, of course, here in Moto3, and a bit of an easier one and maybe a more enjoyable one for Ralston to try and show what he can do in the Moto2 World Championship.
Well, without question, it is way too early in the weekend to get excited. But let's get excited. Look who's in P1. It is the home hero, Filip Salac, as we watch him now cascading downhill towards the Schwanz curve of turn 10, and you're then climbing very much uphill for the rest of the lap. Horsepower Hill, as it is nicknamed. This is through the left-right section of 11 and 12, where we saw Celestino Vietti come to a stop. No question at the moment, Al, that Filip Salac is in the best form of his Moto2 career, and it was noticeable, wasn't it, in his part-time interview with our friend and colleague Jack Appleyard back in Hungary, that he puts a lot of that down to the environment he finds himself in at American racing.
Yeah, I've spoken to Eaton Buttball, of course, team manager down at the OnlyFans American Racing team a couple of times this year, and he's explained that Salac has gelled superbly with that team as Salac improves his time at the top of the standings. Let's just end the Moto2 weekend now, shall we? Salac on top of the podium that we can see directly ahead of us here in Brno. I'm joking, of course. We want to see them go out and race, as he just makes a little bit of mistake there going through turn 2. But yeah, Salac and teammate Joe Roberts, I know after the Austin Grand Prix, they both went over to California, of course, where Joe Roberts is from, and enjoyed some training and some time off there ahead of the European leg of the season. It's always good for a team to have two riders who get along so well. Now, of course, it might be different if they're both challenging for titles or challenging for wins on a regular basis, but of course makes the team environment much nicer to work in, and team's job a lot easier as well, to not have to try and separate some riders and try and keep both riders happy. The environment down there, the American racing team, looks and sounds like a very, very positive one, and Salach is thoroughly enjoying himself, and this is the best we've seen of Salach. He says it himself. He's riding the bike as good as he's ever have done, feeling as comfortable as he ever has done as well, and he said after the race as well, he's now in his peak, and fingers crossed, this is the Philipp Salach we're going to see for the rest of the season. Of course, doesn't have a Moto2 win to his name yet, but if you continue on this way, you do feel like a Moto2 win is absolutely possible, which, you know, at the start of the season, I don't think anyone would have said Salach, after a little bit of a trickier season last year, hopping back onto a Kalex in a new team, of course, as well. I don't think too many people would have pinpointed Salach as a race winner, but fair play to Salach, as he put it, for never giving up through the tough times. And I quite liked his words in Parc Fermé in his interview afterwards as well, sort of telling everyone else to not give up. I quite like that as an athlete and a rider. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We know from the results sheets and sometimes what riders say, that sometimes it's tough times, but Salach said he kept all that to himself, didn't try and show anything, that he was really struggling both mentally and a little bit physically as well in the last couple of years with what was going on, results not coming his way, getting unlucky at times, but now he's reaping the rewards of just sticking at it. Obviously, American racing team gave him a chance this season, and he's paying them back in amends, and that's in dividends, sorry, and that's really good to see from the number 12, but it is now the championship leader Manu Gonzalez who's just topped him in FP1.
Playing the role of pantomime villain this weekend is Manu Gonzalez, who, of course, when you're fighting for a world championship, leading a world championship, no room for sentiment, no room for thinking of the Hollywood ending to this weekend, which would be a Salach victory, let's face it. Here at the Czech Grand Prix, Manu Gonzalez is looking to really put his foot on the throat of his Moto2 championship rivals. The way his points advantage has really evolved through the last few Grand Prix. Of course, it was after the French Grand Prix that Ethan Guevara, who were riding on board with and now watching, won. There was only 9.5 points between Gonzalez and Guevara. He extended that by a further 9 points in Barcelona, by further 16 points in Mugello, and then another 15 added on to his advantage at the Hungarian Grand Prix, as Guevara has not exactly been having a bad time of it, but hasn't been able to match the relentless consistency of race winning that we've seen from Manu Gonzalez as of late. 3 on the bounce. That is why that World Championship lead has really ballooned out to just shy of 50 points. And Manu Gonzalez, I guess, when you're on that sort of upward curve of confidence, you just want to ride that momentum wave for as long as you can, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. And we mentioned Fermin Aldeguer's run of form a few years ago. Those victories in succession ultimately earned Fermin Aldeguer a MotoGP seat. Now, we don't know if that's going to be the case for Gonzalez, but he's doing all he can to be on the MotoGP grid in 2027. Really interested to see where Gonzalez ends up next year. Does he hop into MotoGP as he fully deserves? Does he then think, you know what, forget this, I'm going to go into World Superbike and try and win for the challenge for titles and win more races there, or does he stick it out in Moto2 for another season? That all remains to be seen. What he is doing, though, is doing a superb job and sending message after message to riders like Ethan Guevara, to Celestino Vietti, to his teammate on the other side of the box, Senna Regius, and to the Aspar riders who we fully expected to be well in the title hunt this year of Holgado Alonso, to say, catch me if you can, boys, because I am riding the crest of a wave and I'm not slowing down anytime soon. 3 wins in the last 3, was second in France before that, was second in the Ref before that, had a bit of an off weekend, if we can call it that. I'm not going to call it that, but a P5 over in Austin, and then podiums, of course, in Brazil and Thailand. And he's just giving the others so much work to do in this championship chase heading into the summer break. We've got Aston, and then we've got the Saxon Ring. If he leaves the Saxon Ring with this sort of points advantage, okay, 50 points, 49.5 as it is right now, is still catchable, of course, we know that. And Gonzalez will know that from last year, of course, from Diogo Moreira reeling him, and of course the Brazilian going on to win the Moto2 title. A lot can happen. We're not ruling out anyone just yet, but this form that Gonzalez is in, the likes of Guevara and Vietti can't afford to be picking up P6s and P7s too more often if Gonzalez is going to continue to churn out wins, churn out podiums on a regular basis. Chelsea and Vietti, for example, can't be qualifying down in P16 in Italy, can't be qualifying down in P12 in Hungary. Okay, Vietti went from P16 to P2 in Mugello, but he can't do that every weekend if he's doing that. So the riders behind aren't doing a bad job, but Gonzalez is just doing such a good job that it's making their results look bang average.
Yeah, I was going to make that very point. Ethan Guevara is having his, by far and away, his best Moto2 campaign so far. It would be very harsh to criticise the 28 at this point. And Chelsea Vietti, it's easy to forget, has never actually finished in the top 6 of a Moto2 World Championship, even if he has led it before some 4 years ago. So they are, in many respects, riding at a level that they've not ridden at often, if at all, in their Moto2 careers. Here is Chelsea Vietti. I was just about to say that we haven't seen him back on the racetrack yet, but we have now at least seen him back in pit lane, and it would appear as if he's got the bike back to the box by his own 2 feet himself.
Yeah, it's taken a while, hasn't it? Where was he?
Steep
down in?
As well.
Yeah, turn 12. So up horsepower hill without any horsepower is pretty difficult, unfortunately. Vietti, though, has got that bike back, but he's lost some valuable time. Still just over 26 minutes remaining in the session. So whatever the issue is, hopefully it's a quick fix down there in the Boscoscuro garage, and Vietti can get out for the final 20 minutes or so in this session, and he'll glance at the timing screens and see Gonzalez pretty much 3/10 clear of the chasing pack, which is not what Vietti and the others want to be seeing. Gonzalez did describe the race last time out as the most difficult of the season. And he is saying a lot of riders, you know, it's not coming easy. We know that. Winning races is never easy, and he says this as well. He was struggling from the bike, from the first lap, and learned some things from Salac. And in the end managed his tyres potentially a little bit better than Salac, and just had a little bit extra than the Czech rider last time out in Hungary. Here is what happened to Vietti. Oh, looks like it just cut out. Obviously glanced behind, and it was one of the Clint factory racing bikes who narrowly avoided Vietti, thankfully, but looked like Vietti didn't have much warning about that.
Saw him twisting the throttle there, hoping for some response, and clearly didn't get any, so Vietti had to park it at the side of the road. He's crashed in the last 2 qualifying sessions as Celestino Vietti, which certainly hasn't helped his cause, even if, as you mentioned, he's proven pretty good at recovering from lowly grid positions. Vietti trails the World Championship leader by 52.5 points now, after failing to back up that pair of podiums back in Mugello and in Barcelona. Hasn't been on the podium, or wasn't on the podium at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and never really looked like he was ever going to come close to it, did he, in fairness? 7th place as Colin Via hits the deck. He and Ethan Guevara had been lapping pretty much in tandem for the whole of this FP1 session, but that has now come to a screeching halt for Via.
Yeah, turn 3 that looks like for Colin Via. It is turn 3. Is he slightly wide? No, not really. And it goes quite late around turn 3. Yeah, unfortunate for Via, who tries desperately to grab onto the clutch to keep the bike running. Hopefully the Dutchman has done that. Get another angle from the rear end of Ethan Guevara, and just a simple front end slide, unfortunately, for the number 95. Had a similar crossover in Balaton Park out of top 6 contention, I think it was, for Colin Via. Was on for a decent result, a decent weekend over in Hungary, but unfortunately had that crash. A few too many crashes, unfortunately, creeping in at this moment in time for Via. That is Nicky Io looking pensively on as he sees his teammate Jose Antonio Rueda up inside the top 4. We pick up Rueda now, which is great stuff from Rueda. But yeah, hopefully Via is all okay after that crash and not too much damage, and he can get back on the bike and yeah, get on his way, because that's not the start of the weekend the Dutch rider would have wanted. No podium, of course, after that fantastic podium over in Jerez for Via, and only 1 top 10 as well. He'll be wanting a good weekend this weekend. Of course, no matter what, you want to go to a Grand Prix and have a good weekend, but of course the Dutch Grand Prix is coming up next weekend, a really good one for Via. So fingers crossed for Via, he can have a solid weekend at Brno, and then head into his home Grand Prix with a bit more confidence in the pocket.
Confidence in the pocket too for Jose Antonio Rueda, 4th in this session on a 159.6. The runaway winner of the Moto3 battle here last year, of which Jose Antonio Rueda did have several, it's fair to say. On his way to the World Championship, leads the Rookie of the Year chase at the moment, does Rueda, with Alberto Fernandez also getting himself very much up to speed in his rookie campaign. Rueda backing up points finishes in Catalonia and Mugello, with another at his best so far as a Moto2 rider, 11th at the checkered flag in Hungary, even if once again he did begin to feel the physical strain in the latter stages. Of course, he has undergone arm pump surgery already this season and did find himself having a bit of a drop in arm strength in the latter stages, but was able to grit his teeth and get over the line in 11th place. Did Rueda, just held off this man Barry Baltus on the final lap, just a tenth of a second between them, as Baltus now moves up into the top 6. And I guess if we look at previous history, and of course for much of this Moto2 field there's only 1 year's worth of history to draw upon, we I guess should be expecting a bit of a bounce back from Barry this weekend.
Yeah, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you? Was on pole position last year, and it was him and Joe Roberts who were the cream of the crop, really, last year. Mario Gonzalez was in good form last year in 2025 when we came to the Czech Grand Prix, and even he, the championship contender from last year, and of course the current runaway title leader this year, couldn't lay a glove on Baltus and Joe Roberts. It was a great fight, and fair play to Roberts for going on to win the race, of course, but Baltus really kept him honest, was less than a second away for much of the Grand Prix, just couldn't quite able to reel in Roberts. Roberts defended superbly, rode superbly, a faultless ride from the American a year ago, but yeah, Baltus was right in that mix, and hopefully we get to see the Belgian back in that mix sometime soon, and fingers crossed it's this weekend, because it's not been the season we, nor the team, nor of course Barry himself would have been expecting so far this year, as Celestino Vietti does get that bike fired up and heading down the pit lane. So whatever it was, fingers crossed the gremlins have gone and it's a quick fix, and for the final 20 minutes Vietti can get some laps on the board.
This is from on board what happened to Celestino Vietti. Let's have a listen into the Boscoscuro, see if we can detect anything. Difficult to pick up anything, obviously. There wasn't changing gear, was Celestino Vietti, very much in second gear. He does then shift down to first as he pulls it to a stop, so gearbox was working okay. Whatever the problem, it would appear to have been fixed for now for Celestino Vietti to return to the racetrack on the number 13. I referenced the beautiful weather we have here this weekend. Well, it's beautiful, but I guess if you're a pair of Brits, as we are in the commentary box, this might just be just a little bit over the limit of what kind of temperatures we can really hack. We're expecting air temperature as we get into this afternoon's action here in excess of 30 degrees. 31 degrees of air temperature is expected later on, which will translate to a track temperature predicted by IRTA of in excess of 55 degrees Celsius. And tomorrow's air temperature for Moto2 qualifying for the Tissot Sprinting MotoGP over 33 degrees and a potential track temperature of nearly 60. These are going to be punishing conditions for riders, for machines, for tyres, and I think the most essential item in a Moto Grand Prix paddock here this weekend, Del, is this air conditioning unit that's about a foot behind us.
Yeah, doing a superb job so far, isn't it? And we'll continue to do so. 33 degrees in the afternoon doesn't sound fun in pit lane especially. So yeah, looking forward to getting a bit moist down there in pit lane later on this afternoon, and hopefully might be speaking to Jose Antonio Rueda in Parc Ferme, who knows. But it's a strong opening half of FP1 for Rueda. But yeah, conditions later on this afternoon are going to be challenging for the riders, punishing for the tyres, and of course when track temperatures get above 50 degrees, that changes the grip levels as well. So it's going to be interesting to see who can adapt to that better when yeah, we go for time attacks later on this afternoon. Get some nice slow-mo shots here around the Automotodrome Brno circuit. That is the championship leader Manu Gonzalez, the current session leader as well. Not had too many quicker times come in lately. Obviously Gonzalez's third lap out of 10 so far was his quickest, as the riders obviously put some longer runs together to get warmed up into the weekend and of course focus on Sunday. That'll happen of course later this afternoon as well, before we get some fresh tyres slotted in. That's Dennis Onchu cutting up the inside of Zonta van den Gorber. Looks potentially like turn 1, but obviously very difficult to tell from that angle. But yeah, some good vantage points here in Brno to get some great pictures and great slow-mos of these riders doing their thing around one of the best circuits on the calendar.
Onchu returning to the scene of his Grand Prix debut in Moto3 some 7 years ago. There's already plenty of sweat building there for Ethan Guevara, who's managed to lap this circuit in just under 2 minutes, 59.9. He's 0.8 of a second off the pace in 11th place. Looking up the timing screen up ahead of him, he is still the leading Boscoscuro in this session. Actually finished up in the top 6 last year, did Guevara here in Brno, so a circuit that he has some good memories to draw upon from his one previous visit. Yeah, the top 3 at the moment resembles the top 3 from the checkered flag in Hungary. It's Gonzalez, Salac and Agius, your 1, 2, 3. For Senna Agius, he felt he had a bit of a score to settle after losing a podium within metres of the flag back in Mugello. A score that he very much did settle in Peloton. He
did, and he came under pressure, didn't he, from a hard charging David Alonso, who was sniffing that first podium of the season, was unable to get it. But yeah, Agius did well to fend off the Colombian in the latter stages. Agius was expecting actually to have a bit more, especially in the opening exchanges, to Salac, the rider on your screen, the home hero this weekend, and Gonzalez in the hotter conditions, because he said on Saturday he felt like he had a little bit of a step on the other two compared to what unfolded on Sunday. Agius was there or thereabouts, but was thinking for Agius, a return to the podium, of course, for the Australian for the first time since his Jerez Grand Prix victory. So a timely return, and he mentioned this as well in his interview afterwards, Agius, that it was this part of the season with Gonzalez doing what he's doing where it's really crucial to pick up as many points as you can, and a podium is of course doing that as well. And it was his first time, of course, at Balaton Park as well for Agius. So I think overall he was very, very happy, and understandably so, with picking up that P3, and said the bike was working really well. So good to hear Agius singing from a positive hinge sheet. Of course, he was P4 over in Mugello, so it was a couple of strong weekends, which is what was needed after finishing the Catalan Grand Prix down in P10 and was P7 at the French Grand Prix as well. So not terrible results, of course, but not where we're used to seeing Agius this season. Back-to-back victories in Austin and Jerez, so good to see the Australian back on the podium and picking up some important points if he does want to continue to challenge his teammate for this title.
And what about the rider that he did just hold off in the final lap? We saw his bike a moment ago, David Alonso. Alonso's 9th in this session at the moment on a 1:59.710. Looked so good for so much of the weekend, did Alonso. Was second in all 3 practice sessions, and then was of course the fastest rider, as he so often is, in the latter stages of the race as he chased down Senna Agius. It's now 9 races without a podium though now for David Alonso, and continuing to pick up on the theme of the number 9. It was qualifying down in 9th place that did so much of the damage to David Alonso. And for all the good things we can say about the Colombian, and there are many we can say about the former Moto3 world champion, it's that clear inability at the moment to fully exploit the performance from a brand new Pirelli tyre in qualifying that's costing him any hope of challenging for the World Championship.
Exactly that. Hasn't qualified on the top 2 roads since Jerez, and that is really costing Alonso to be first and foremost finishing on the podium. We say this every weekend, don't we? You'd have had very good money off a lot of people to say that Alonso wouldn't have been on the podium in the first 8 Grand Prix of the season. Round 9 coming up, of course, as well. It is now 9 races without a podium, as Lewis mentions. That was the best result since Jerez for Alonso, where he also finished a very close P4 to the podium. But the rider on your screen does need to start finish on the podium and pick up wins if he wants to challenge Manu Gonzalez for this championship. 83.5 points down is Alonso in this championship chase. And like the podium streak and the winless streak, you'd have had very good money on saying Alonso would be that far down the pecking order in the title race at this stage of the season, because he was a lot of people's favourites, and understandably so as well. Got the better of his teammate, which I think he would have been happy about over in Hungary, did have Alonso. And again, it is that latter race pace that's just outstanding. But he's not putting himself in the position to be able to use that to fight for victories, unfortunately, as things stand. But Alonso was overall pleased with how the race went. He was able to apparently observe other riders, and did say he learnt a lot off his teammate as well, who has a different style. So picking up some pointers is the 2024 Moto3 World Champion. And I think both him and Holgado are both saying they're making positive progress, they're taking it step by step, and not getting carried away, keeping the sort of, you know, feet on the ground and not trying to raise any expectations, but knowing them as we do, both winners. Alonso, of course, a world champion as well. We know, you guys listening will know deep down that they are not happy with glancing at the championship standings and seeing, in Holgado's case, 78.5 points down on Gonzalez, and in Alonso's case 83.5 points down. That's not where they would have expected to be at this stage of the season, certainly not where we expected them to be, nor the team as well. So it's getting to crunch time, I'd say, especially these next 3 Grand Prix. If they're anywhere close to 100 points down on Gonzalez as we go into the summer break, I don't want to rule that calibre of rider out of the championship like Alonso, but you got to feel like if they are anywhere close to 100 points away, then realistically they're not going to win the title from there.
Yeah, it does feel like it's just one small thing that needs to click for, particularly for Alonso, and he's going to be right there, because if he can qualify up at the sharp end and be leading races early on, he's going to be very difficult to stop in the latter stages of a race with his late race pace. But the two are often connected, aren't they? If you're very good on old tyres at the end of the race, it's perhaps because you're not using them up when they're brand new, and that's what we're seeing from David Alonso in Moto2 at the moment. It's what we're seeing from Ayagura, former Moto2 world champion in MotoGP right now, as we see Alex Escridge moving up the order. He's now up into 7th place, first of the 2 forwards. Of course, it's Xavi Zaragoza, who's his now full-time teammate after Jorge Navarro departed the forward team before the Hungarian Grand Prix. Zaragoza at the moment in 25th place, some 2 seconds off the pace as we follow last year's pole sitter Barry Baltus, as the number 7 rounds the final corner, turn 14 on this 5.4 kilometre Automotodrome of Brno, and Barry Baltus now moves up into 2nd place. He the advantage of Gonzalez ever so slightly down to 1/4 of a second.
See the chatter on that Calyx there coming around. around turn one. I don't think that was purely down to bumps either. Some, yeah, like a pogo stick coming through turn one for Barry Bottas. Not the same for Joe Roberts, who moves up into that top 10, the winner here from National. Good stuff from Roberts on the number 16 to slot in behind David Alonso, but it does look like an intact GP machine is potentially going to P1 here, and it's not Gonzalez, it is his teammate Senna Regis. Couple of corners to negotiate for the Australian. That is turn 13, and that's Luca Lanetta behind him now, and this is turn 14, all about getting a great run out of 14, carry the speed through the corner, try and pick it up, keep it off the green on the exit as well, and that's what Aegis has done. A new table topper in FP1, and it is the 81 of Senna Regis.
If you are looking out for the speed RS bikes, as Aegis clearly was there as he navigated his way past Luca Lanetta. You've got to look for red machines this weekend, as once again they continue to change their title sponsor and livery by the weekend. Of course, we've seen plenty of Vietti already in this session. He's in the order, trying to find Vietti. He still doesn't actually have a lap time next to his name. Still just 27 names on our timing screen, so has had some issues still. Guevara lifts the first of the Bosca scorers now up into 5th place. Salac, though, takes top spot with a strong final sector, and the many fans, of which we saw several on the grass banks with the giant Salac, they'll be waving his surname with pride now as the Czech takes top spot.
Great final sector for Filip Salac, then rises back to P1 for the first time in around about 20 minutes, and that is a great sign, isn't it, for the rest of the weekend. Don't want to get too carried away. Probably will do, though, unfortunately, for Salac in this commentary box anyway. We're not meant to be biased, but it would be great to see the number 12. I'm sure everyone, not everyone, a lot of people will agree. Australian fans, I don't think, would agree to knock Senna Regis down to P2, but a lot of fans will be very happy to see the number 12 on the top step at the end of the weekend. But it is, again, promising signs, continued progress for Salac. It wasn't just a flash in the pan in Hungary, he was quick over in Mugello as well. And there you can see the big Czech flag with the big sign. They're going to get a lot of airtime this weekend, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, remember the name. You can't forget it, can you, with the size of that in the grandstands. The party pooper has taken top spot again, though. The aforementioned party pooper being Manu Gonzalez, the World Championship lead on a 58.8. I have to say, if this is the kind of weekend we're going to have, if it resembles this free practice one session with the dominant World Championship leader and title favourite taking on the local hero, that's quite the Hollywood script, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll have some of that. Oh, Gonzalez getting a bit out of shape there through turn 4, and it's your top 3 from last time out in Hungary. There's your top 3 now. Gonzalez leading, Salac leading, Senna Aegis with Barry Bottas and Joe Roberts inside the top 5 now. Roberts has improved his time to jump inside the top 5, the top 2 from last year, chasing the top 3 from last time out. And of course for American Racing, great to see 2 of their riders up inside that top 5 as well. So this is a very promising start to the weekend. Of course, very early days, but it looks like we're going to have a good battle on our hands for the rest of the weekend. And now the Aspardew are trying to get in on the act as well. Yeah,
here comes Alonso, who's all arms and legs and full of commitment into the final S-bend of 13 and 14. Quarter of a second down, which looks set to lift him potentially 4 or 5 places up into the top 6 potentially if he has a good end to the lap. He actually goes up into 4th place, but that has changed because Danny Holgado, who did get a little more out of his a brand new Pirelli rear tyre at the end of that session, he now goes into P1 on a 58.8, just 12 thousandths of a second between the 2 Spaniards up front. Manny Gonzalez, though, once again is on the process of changing that.
Yeah, lost a little bit of time in the third split, but as you can see, still over a 10.5 up on now. Danny Holgado's time. Let's see what he can do through the final split, because Holgado had a pretty decent one out of the final corner. Gonzalez comes with just over 5 minutes of the session remaining. Is he going to improve? Yes, he does, and finds time in that final split as well. So Gonzalez laying down a little bit of a marker here for the rest of the weekend, and this is the Gonzalez we saw last year, straight out of the blocks, straight firing and up into P1.
Yeah, and he says, and we've sort of suspected it from the outside, so it's good to have it confirmed from the man himself, that he's mentally just so much stronger. His mindset stronger than it was a year ago. And when it sort of brings us back to the conversation around this man, David Alonso, and his teammate Danny Holgado, doesn't feel as if Emmanuel Gonzalez collapse is coming, does it, in the second half of the season? They are going to have to go out and take the World Championship from him this season, with Manuel Gonzalez in such supreme form. Technically, he's a better rider than he was last year, but mentally on board the bike, he's got the experience from having fought for a World Championship at this level for the first time. Of course, he has won World Championships, Manuel Gonzalez. He's the youngest road racing World Champion on 2 wheels when he won the Supersport 300 crown at 16 years of age, or certainly was the youngest when he achieved it. And Manuel Gonzalez looking to benefit from the experience of coming so close in 2025 to go one step better this year.
Clearly learning from his mistakes, learning from the loss last year, which is what the question was coming into this season for Gonzalez. Would he be able to go again? Would he be able to recover from the disappointment? And yes, he absolutely is. And referenced the mental side of things at the end of the weekend over in Hungary. He said last year he was really bothered about trying to finish P1 in every single session in all types of conditions, but that's not the case this year. Gonzalez is obviously unhappy when he doesn't finish P1 in a session, like a lot of these riders are, but doesn't look at the timesheets when he's maybe a little bit further down the order outside the top 5 and think that's an absolute disaster. Working much more methodically this year, and knows that come Sunday he is one of, if not the quickest rider out there. Certainly has been the quickest rider out there in the last 3 Grand Prix. So it is a different character we're seeing this year for Gonzalez. Maybe you could call it a bit more mature, certainly more experienced after what he went through last year.
Well, that's it, isn't it? If you're so focused on being P1 in every session, it can almost become an unhealthy obsession, can't it, through a weekend? If you find yourself knocked off top sport, then you could potentially doubt yourself. You can potentially try and reinvent the wheel, make unnecessary changes. On the bike, Manu Gonzalez knows very well how good he is, and he's in the process. To try to convince MotoGP teams of how good he is as well, with a potential place on the MotoGP grid still up for grabs for Manu Gonzalez, potentially in the well, who knows, maybe the next days and weeks we will get some firm answers and some official press releases from MotoGP teams about who they're going to be running next year. Here comes Antonio Rueda, who has been in the top 10 for much of this session, and he now moves up into the top 6 again. This is really encouraging work from the Moto3 world champion.
Certainly is, and this is encouraging for the Czech fans as well, and Filip Salac and only fans American racing. I don't think he's quite going to go P1, won't rule it out. He goes P2 and improves his time. Just lost the timing screens for a second there, but Salac does improve his time, just over a tenth away now from Gonzalez, but does rise back into P2, and that's his girlfriend there, and I assume some family and friends there as well, which is lovely for Salac to have support around him at his home Grand Prix, as you would expect.
Yeah, his phone will have been ringing plenty, won't it, since Hungary. Any chance of some tickets, Philip, for the Czech Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time? I'm sure many will have got their wish. There was barely any room in the fan zone yesterday evening, in fact, in the nearby city centre, as they all came out to support their home hero. And so Joe Roberts, teammate to Salac, winner here last year. Certainly impressing his team manager, Eaton Bull, second and fifth now for the American racing duo. I think Eaton, given Joe's record around here and Filip Salac's allegiances and nationality, this would have been a weekend I think he might have circled alongside the United States Grand Prix in Austin at the start of the season as a weekend to remember. Yeah, 100%. Obviously, coming into weekend, you never know how it's going to unfold. You can't really go off last year. Okay, that's what we do with the results and the form book.
but obviously a lot can change in a year, and a lot has changed for Joe Roberts as well. Hasn't been on the podium since that victory last year, but great signs for Roberts early in this weekend that he is in that sort of podium mix, and obviously the team very happy with that as well, because it's not been the season Roberts Salac to be in second and Roberts in P5. It's a really promising start for the American racing team, who, as Lewis rightly points out, they would have been looking at the calendar and thinking Austin, the Czech Grand Prix, and then hopefully a few others that could have been a real sort of pinpoint where we can have good results, and looking good so far that can be repeated.
Rueda improves again. He's now in 5th. If you're just joining us in this FP2 session with around about 35 seconds to go with Moto2 FP1 coming up. We have seen a crash for Rueda's teammate, Colin Via, so we haven't seen much of him in the interim. He is now back out on the racetrack, is Via, incidentally. Currently circulating in 14th place. We also saw a technical problem at the start of the session for Celestino Vietti. Vietti, in terms of how much lap time or how much mileage he's lost, he's done 8 laps in this session, which is half the mileage of this man, Manu Gonzalez, who's about to complete his 16th lap of the session, and Vietti at the moment down in 21st place, so 1.4 seconds in arrears.
Here's Gonzalez then coming around the final corner. Not going to improve unless he pulls something out of the bag. There is the checkered flags, but it is an end of session run that was very, very positive for the championship leader. He's looking like he's going to end the session on top as well. There's some improved lap times coming in, but no red crash helmets on our timing screen, so I think that is pretty much all she wrote in the session, and it is the championship leader Gonzalez, who doesn't lay down a gauntlet necessarily, but kicks off the weekend in P1. Salac in second place as well, so good for the Czech fans. But yeah, a very good session from Gonzalez, who'll take confidence into the afternoon, but not that he really needed any added confidence, because he's riding the crest of the wave at the minute, is Gonzalez. But another sort of little message at the start of the weekend to say, yep, I'm bang on form here again in Brno.
Update on the riders making returns from either injuries or surgeries. We've got Sergio Garcia in 16th place at the moment. Would assume, given that he's taken a full part in this session, 14 laps next to his name, that Garcia will get the go-ahead to continue in the weekend from here. Reminder, he was to be reviewed after this FP1 session after arm pump surgery. And Angel Piqueras, his fellow Spaniard, who's trying to resume his Moto2 season after the broken femur earlier in the season and a curtailed return in Peloton Park. Piqueras 24th at the end of that FP1 session, 1.5 seconds off the pace.
Good end of the session then for Salac. I think he'll be very, very pleased with that, and so will the Czech fans as well. We're going to get a glimpse of the big Salac sign one more time before Moto2 rolls into the MotoGP programme. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows?
Coming on Sunday and you want to get on telly,
exactly,
you know what to do.
There's just going to be a hillside just full of massive Salac posters. Everyone trying to get their airtime, which is understandable. So in fact, I'd actually love to see that. So if you are listening and coming on Saturday or Sunday, please do that. But yeah, Gonzalez spoiling the party a little bit. Not quite the all-time lap record, but as we've seen for a lot of this season, as soon as we get underway in the weekends, we're sort of creeping down towards that and expect that. Although temperatures are going to rise, so maybe not, but do expect that to go later on this afternoon.
To quote a famous wrestler of the past whose catchphrase was, to be the man, you've got to beat the man. Well, that's kind of the challenge awaiting Filip Salac this weekend. If you want a fairy tale home victory at the Czech Grand Prix this weekend, it feels like he's going to have to take on and beat the World Championship leader, Manu Gonzalez, who continues his red-hot summer streak. 3 consecutive victories, and he tops free practice 1 here at Brno. Podium finisher, of course, last year was Gonzalez, in a situation where he was very much thinking about the World Championship, with Barry Baltus and eventual winner Joe Roberts up the road ahead of him. Didn't have the pace ultimately to manage a challenge, so settled for a comfortable 3rd place. It doesn't feel like Manu Gonzalez is in any sort of mood to settle for 2nds and 3rds at the moment. He wants to take a record-equaling 4th consecutive Moto2 victory this weekend to equal the likes of Fermin Aldeguer and 2010 champion Tony Elias. We do get them on screen one more time, and the blue flares also are populating the Czech air here in Brno. Philip Salac was second, though, overall. Manu Gonzalez, the World Championship leader, saw to that. Gonzalez quickest in FP1 from Philip Salac. And Danny Holgado, Seneragius, the last of the four in the 58th. Fourth from Moto3 champ Jose Antonio Rueda. Good morning for him. Ahead of last year's winner Joe Roberts. Alonso, Guevara, Baltas and Munoz completing the top 10. From Escridge, first of the forwards. Ortola, Arbolido and Valle, who crashed at turn 3. Sasaki, Garcia, Unchu, Fernandez, Huertas and Aaron Canet complete your top 20. Vietti had some early technical problems, got back out on the track to take 21st ahead of Tyler Rosalto, Zonta van den Goorberg and Angel Piqueras. Quiet morning for Alonso Lopez, down in 25th ahead of Luca Lanetta, Xabi Zuratusa and Jacob Ralston, the substitute at Honda Team Asia. So the World Championship leader off to a flyer, as was home hero Philip Salac. Gonzalez quickest in free practice 1 here in Brno. MotoGP's first running of the weekend. Their FP1 session is on the way next.
MotoGP has made the 300-kilometre trip from Balaton Park to Brno for round 9 in 2026. Beautiful Brno is Czechia's second largest city and its iconic track. First hosted MotoGP nearly 40 years ago, back in 1987. Known as the Adrenaline Factory and seen in Valentino Rossi's first Grand Prix success 30 years ago. Runaway next live with FP1. It's time for MotoGP. Left the tight, twisty Balaton Park. It's time now for something completely different. Welcome to the spectacular Brno circuit. 5.4 kilometres in length, 3.36 miles, 14 turns, 8 right, 6 of them left as we snake our way around the woodland area on the outskirts of Czechia's second city. Hard braking into turn 1. Hardest braking zone on the circuit is into turn 3. Into the stadium section of Sector 2, down the hill into the Kevin Schwantz corner, turn 10. Up Horsepower Hill you go through 12 and 13. It's all about your engine grunt in that particular part of this magnificent Brno circuit. Good morning and a warm welcome to Czechia, a warm welcome to Brno. And when we say a warm welcome, boy do we mean it. It's scorching hot already as we approach, just gone 10:36 a.m. a local time on this practice Friday here ahead of the Monster Energy Grand Prix of Czechia. We're expecting ambient temperatures to peak at 30 degrees this afternoon, 32 degrees tomorrow for the Tissot Sprint, and a mild 31 degrees by those standards here on Sunday for our 9th chapter in what is turning out to be an enthralling and captivating MotoGP World Championship battle. So much to talk about after our latest edition of this year's championship at the tight Balaton Park in Hungary, where Marco Bezzecchi left with a 20-point lead over his factory Aprilia teammate Jorge Martin, but he left in some considerable pain as well. That controversial first lap incident involving Jorge Martin, which saw him clatter and clean out World Champions League Marco Bezzecchi, Fabio Di Gianantonio, Fermin Aldeguer and Ralph Fernandez also involved in that turn 1 melee. The outcome of that this weekend, we'll see Martin here on Sunday in the 21-lap Grand Prix of Czechia have to go through the long lap penalty lane. Lots to digest and cover off in terms of the factory Aprilias and of course Marc Marquez back to winning ways. The reigning world champions title defence up and running, wasn't it, last time out in Balaton? The perfect weekend for the 33-year-old Spaniard. Pole position, sprint victory and a Grand Prix victory which saw him rack up the century. Marc Marquez just a 3rd rider in Grand Prix history to muster a century of wins. Only Giacomo Agostini and Valentino Rossi have won more now, or have topped that magic milestone of 100 Grand Prix victories. It means Marc Marquez recovered 30 points on Bezzecchi in that crucial Balaton encounter a couple of weeks ago. 72 points he is behind the Italian in the championship chase. Many people feel like it's game on, as Marc won for the first time since the Misano Grand Prix last September. He's back to winning ways, and trying to get himself back to winning ways will be Marco Bezzecchi here this weekend. FP1, as always, in the company of Matt Burt, Lewis Sullivan in the commentary box. Jack Appleyard down in pit lane. He's got a smile on his face, a smile he was not wearing, Lewis, after about 300 metres of the Balaton Grand Prix about 12 days ago.
No, after a big mistake by his teammate and title rival had massive repercussions for the factory Aprilia team. Marco Bezzecchi, who I think in all things considered did actually a very good job in Hungary, taking a podium in the sprint, was looking to do something similar on the Sunday afternoon before it all went wrong for Jorge Martin. A very small mistake, it was described as by many, including by Marc Marquez speaking yesterday in the press conference. But unfortunately, at the start of a Grand Prix, a small mistake has serious repercussions. Repercussions for Jorge Martin that spill over into this weekend.
Yeah, the double long lap penalty, as we mentioned, he'll have to face that here in the main Grand Prix on Sunday. Yeah, lots of riders were leaping to the defence of the 2024 World Champion. Marc Marquez, as Lewis mentioned yesterday, Cal Crutchlow and several other riders saying, well, this was a mistake that all riders can make. It was a small mistake with very big consequences. You'll just see out your picture, the number 89 in Martinelli is already out of control on that newly resurfaced part of Turn 1 into Balaton. And from that point onwards, well, it was a game of skittles. How was your look? No look at all for Bezzecchi, who got a massive, big impact. No look for Aldeguer, no look for Ralph Fernandez, no look for Fabio Di Gianantonio, who was one of the only 5 that was able to remount and did salvage a couple of points at the end of that Grand Prix. In 12th did Fabio Di Gianantonio. So some support from his peers in MotoGP, not so from factory Aprilia boss Massimo Riva, as we get some great news. Alex Marquez back in action for the first time since his horrendous accident at the Catalan Grand Prix. He has been declared fit, Lewis. He will be reviewed after this morning's action. But I think Alex is pretty confident he'll see through the weekend. Of course, a fracture in his neck, a broken collarbone. He feels like the collarbone actually might be his most problematic issue coming back. But after what we saw, the last time we saw Alex, that horrific crash in Catalonia, it's wonderful to see him back, and back so quick. Yeah, back in after missing just a couple of Grand Prix. And it's one of the things that just sets these riders apart and just underlines why they are superhuman in every respect. And Alex Marquez says he's got no problems watching that crash back from Barcelona. I think many fans don't really particularly want to see it again, but Alex has no problem. He wanted to understand what had happened to him, because of course he doesn't remember much of the incident itself. But Alex Marquez back in action. I think these next 3 Grand Prix are all about him just building himself physically wise, and also acquainting himself with a bike that is certainly improving in 2026, so he can really have a good crack at it post-summer break. Yeah, Alex said the best way he felt like personally to deal with the big crash he had in Catalonia, the sort of way to draw a line underneath it was to actually watch it back. Yeah, all riders, don't they, have different ways of recovering from setbacks and adverse situations. Somebody who's very well versed in major comebacks after big crashes. Here's his brother Marc Marquez, who we just saw there briefly on screens, up to 5th in the World Championship, as mentioned. He said he returned after that double surgery on his right foot, and more significantly on the right shoulder. He first damaged in Mandalika last year. He only came back to the Italian Grand Prix Mugello to be ready for a victory challenge in Balaton, a victory challenge which he did produce quite brilliantly. Do we believe Mark Lewis when he says he comes here? What was he, 10 seconds back of the win he was in Mugello? He dominated the weekend in Balaton. I think most people, including Mark himself, expects probably to be stronger than Mugello, but maybe not quite as strong as he was in Hungary. Yeah, this track layout is much closer in resemblance to Mugello than it is to Balaton Park, so perhaps expect a more Mugello-like pecking order as we go through this weekend, and certainly the hot conditions might well steer things towards Aprilia as well. But this is Marc Marquez. We are talking about a 4-time winner around this Brno circuit, so there's no question that he's got the pedigree
around this particular venue. 72 points, as you mentioned, off the World Championship lead. And I don't think anyone is getting anything close to brave enough at this stage to write Marc Marquez out of it altogether.
You write him off at your peril. We've said that, haven't we, for so many times down the years. We just saw there a quick glimpse of Fabio Di Gianantonio in the VR46 Ducati garage, as you saw there. He's had a redressing, an operation under the knife immediately after that nasty first corner tangle he was caught up in Balaton Park. Of course, the finger he initially injured in that aftermath, the horrendous aftermath of the incident instigated by Alex Marquez in Barcelona. Familiar faces back in the paddock. Of course, we know that Davide Brivio moving into a new senior management role in the official Honda squad next season, and that has opened the door for a very welcome turn to somebody who's got bags and bags of MotoGP management experience himself. Francesco Guidotti there, looking rather cool and cash in his new Superfile Trackhouse Aprilia uniform. Just about the best person they could get for the job, Lewis. Tough, big shoes to fill down at Trackhouse with Davide Brivio moving on. But Francesco Guidotti, as mentioned, does bring an enormous management roles.
Yeah, it's very difficult in this paddock to find someone with that level of experience who's just waiting on the sidelines, waiting for an opportunity like that to open up. And we know since he lost his position at the head of the factory KTM squad that he's been keen to get back in, as Francesco Guidotti, of course, joined us in the commentary box on a couple of occasions on Fridays last year. So good to see him back. And we understand that Davide Brivio is still going to be involved in his team principal capacity for the rest of this season, with Francesco Guidotti's title of team manager. Of course, Guidotti will be in full control of the team from next year when, as mentioned, Brivio heads to Honda.
So, as you can see, these are live pictures in glorious sunshine, scorching hot conditions already. We haven't even got to 11 o'clock local time this morning. We're underway here in the Grand Prix of Czechia. 45 minutes will be this opening practice session, and for the second year in a row, one of the riders that we're all talking about is going to be Jorge Martin as we come to Brno. Of course, it was here last year where he made his return to action, having had that long injury layoff after the Qatar Grand Prix. He's been creating headlines for the wrong reasons. A bit of smoke just puffing out the back of Marc Marquez's Ducati.
I don't know whether they've overfilled it or something like that, but either way, he's safely out on the racetrack and the bike is functioning well. Marc Marquez with a special helmet design you might have noticed, in a difference to one of his personal sponsors who are celebrating a special anniversary. So if you're keeping an eye out for Marc Marquez, I'm sure many of you are this weekend, he's got a white crash helmet design to look out for this weekend.
We'll come back onto the Massimo Rivola post-Hungary comments very, very shortly. Of course, here on Monday, we get a glimpse of the future, although it's the top secret behind closed doors test here on Monday. But for the first time, we will see MotoGP riders on new 850cc MotoGP machines, equipped, of course, with Pirelli rubber. As we also get a glimpse of the future, Honda yesterday announcing Alberto Puig's replacement. In comes Mikihiko Kawase, who will be the HRC Castrol Honda team manager from 2027 onwards. Very much an integral part of HRC over the last few years as in a technical capacity. But you are looking at on screens what will be the 2027 Honda team manager. So yeah, a glimpse into the future on Monday here, the 2027 season. All the preparations really do start going up a couple of notches, up a couple of gears. Marc Marquez will be on the new 850cc Ducati. Marco Bezzecchi will be on the new 850cc Aprilia, we believe. Fermin Aldeguer, these are riders that are contracted already, or we believe are going to stay on the same bikes next year. Fermin Aldeguer will be on the Ducati. But surprisingly, there's a few names, Lewis. I think Joan Mir and Luca Marini, it seems, although they are both not going to be on the Honda 850 next year, will actually test the Honda here on Monday. Lots of talk gathering momentum in the Spanish media, particularly yesterday. Pedro Acosta looks like he's going to be moving over to the factory Ducati team next year. Well, we know he certainly is, but he might be given the opportunity to test the KTM 850 on Monday.
To understand which is the muscular form of Alex in this morning.
And looking ahead to Monday, we understand that one of your riders, Fermin, is going to get the opportunity to maybe step into the factory box for the first time and try the new 850. Is that the case? And if so, how much of a reward is that for Fermin after his recent run of Brazil?
Happy for him, because he has the opportunity. Of course, it's a Ducati rider, and I think that he deserves to try new bike, new things, understand the new project for the future. And of course, at the moment, if focus only on this GP, and for the moment we start very, very well.
Thanks, Michele. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Grenadier boss Michele Massini. As you can understand, it's been a very cautious and tentative start to this opening practice session from Alex Marquez. He is down in 22nd place with a 155.757. The two Marquez brothers to opposite ends of the timesheets at the moment, because while we were listening to that little chat with Michele Massini, Marc Marquez did improve. He found more time, a 153.303, and it's a one-man demolition show right now. Mark over 7/10 of a second quicker than Ayagura, who just made a big jump up. I think Ayagura was 17th or 18th just before he came to the line. He's crept up to second, almost in the 53s himself. Let's just come up with a little bit of housekeeping actually while we're on the subject of returning riders. Alex Marquez, another rider of course who was involved in some bruising battles in Catalonia, was Johan Zarco. Cal Crutchlow once again, 10 years after he became the first British MotoGP winner since Barry Sheene in 35 long years. What a day that was for British motorsport. What a day it was for LCR Honda and Cal Crutchlow. So Cal back for this weekend's action and also for the Dutch Grand Prix next weekend in the Netherlands. We haven't seen much of Johan Zarco of late. It's been a bit of radio silence as well from the team, but you might have seen, if you're followers of the Frenchman on social media, he did great cover. Unfortunately, still, Lewis, a month after that crash, he's not yet gone under the knife to rebuild, as we've got a problem here for Jorge Martin. His factory Aprilia has gone kaput.
It's in the third sector somewhere is Jorge Martin. No news of a crash. It looks like he's just pulled the bike to a stop and jumped off it. So we've seen Jorge Martin already stretching his left arm and shoulder out, but this time it's the bike that's the issue for the 2024 World Champion, who's already on his way back to the box without his bike.
Yeah, just before that, we'd seen him doing a bit of off-roading as well, as he goes into a long lap penalty loop once again. And you can see that there's nothing there, is it? You can see him like trying to blip the throttle, and computer says no, unfortunately for Jorge Martin. He'll quickly move off circuit. So that was the second time at least we've seen him tackle the long lap, which he has to come through twice here on Sunday. So tech problems bringing a sort of premature ending, hopefully not for Martin, potentially to his session. Quickly coming back on Zarco. Yes, still a month after that horrible first corner incident he had in Barcelona, where he got tangled up with Pecco Bagnaia's Crash Factory Ducati. He suffered a real severe burn just below the left knee, and that's the reason why they can't operate on the serious damage to the left knee, because of a risk of infection. So what, 4 weeks out, he's still to go under the surgeon knife. The good news is he's back in the gym. He's got a very, very big brace on that left knee, and he's honing his music skills. We know he's a very, very renowned pianist, is the 35-year-old Frenchman. And if you did catch up with him on social media yesterday, he was on the old guitar as well. A bit of a sing-song with some friends and family. So we wish Johan...
keep himself busy somehow,
yeah, he's got to keep himself busy. So yeah, a bit of gym, a bit of guitar for Johan Zarco. Yeah, looks like it's going to be a very, very long layoff, unfortunately, for the former double Moto2 world champion. Well, after all that drama, let's go down to Jack, who's got a bit of a Marc Marquez update. Thanks for your patience, mate.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever, and it's quite an interesting one as well. 11 laps completed by Marc Marquez in this one, all on the same set of tyres. He's gone under his lap record from last year in last year's Czech Grand Prix on 2 separate occasions already. He told us yesterday, as you guys mentioned, I just want to be within 10 seconds of the winner. Well, once again, we've proven that Marc Marquez is a barefaced liar. He is well in contention for victory. Under the lap record twice already. 7 tenths clear of everybody else. This is seriously impressive. This is the sort of stuff we were seeing from Marc in that hot streak of 2025. He's back.
Thanks, Jackie. It was quite funny, wasn't it, in the post-race press conference in Hungary a couple of weeks ago, when David Emmett, our media colleague, said to Marc Marquez, after he was playing down his chances, playing down his prospects going into that Hungarian Grand Prix weekend, where he said, "Oh, I don't expect to be fighting for the win." And do we believe anything, Mark, that you're going to tell us ever again in the future? I remember Pecco Bagnaia, who was sat alongside him after securing his 3rd successive podium in 2026, which has been a pretty impressive run from the Italian. Pecco just looked at Mark and said, "I will not want to play poker with this guy. His poker face is as good as anybody's out there." Yeah, this has been impressive. This has been a super, super strong start, hasn't it, to this Grand Prix number 9 in 2026. Pecco Bagnaia is trying to make a game of it. We've got 2 factory Ducatis now at the top. Pecco's just punted in his best time of the session, a 1:53.679. So he's now in the 53s. And what was a rather large gap of over 7/10 of a second between the rest of the chasing pack, the gap's cut down to just under 4/10, which is still a massive, massive gap.
And we know that Pecco Bagnaia doesn't change tyres in free practice 1 either, so one would assume he's on the same rubber he started the morning with. He's now done 11 laps on those tyres. Race distance on Sunday afternoon is 21 laps. And it's not like the factory Ducati or the 2026 spec Ducati is a poor bike. Yes, it started the season by its own standards fairly poorly. Aprilia dominating the early stages of the season. They currently dominate all 3 championships, or certainly 2 of the 3. But Ducati have now won 3 of the last 5 Grand Prix, with Alex Marquez's victory back in Jerez, Fabio Di Giannantonio's victory in Barcelona, and Marc Marquez's victory in Balaton Park. So the steps that they have made to refine this 2026 spec of Ducati, and of course helping a fully fit Marc Marquez, certainly will help. It's fair to say that Aprilia's early season dominance has been trimmed somewhat.
There has been that kind of caveat next to Aprilia's startling start to the campaign. It has been brilliant, the best start they've ever made to a new campaign, but you've always felt like, yeah, this is Aprilia winning a whole bunch of Grand Prix, but they have not come up yet against a proper, fully fit Marc Marquez, and we don't believe he is back to full fitness, whatever that may be. He said he's having to ride that the shoulder is feeling a lot different when he's on the bike compared to 2025. He was able to get a little bit of rest and recuperation last weekend, a welcome break after the stresses of Mugello and Balaton back-to-back. Although he was keeping himself in motorsport action. We saw Marc attend the Catalan Formula 1 Grand Prix. Pedro Acosta was there too. And thankfully, if you were tuning into the F1 coverage, as you'll see this morning, Marc Marquez is not a former MotoGP rider. Still very, very much part of the game. We do believe very, very shortly, maybe even possibly next week, that Marc Marquez's 2-year renewal with the factory Ducati team could be confirmed in the next few days.
Yeah, we could be getting some news later on today in terms of the way MotoGP is ultimately going to look in 2027 and beyond, with a press conference we understand likely to come over the course of the day, as you rode on board there with Jorge Martin for his issue, which certainly curtailed that run. As you can see, he's going to get back on his second bike to rejoin this session. As we now take a look at the KTM of Pedro Acosta, who, as we also saw, was down at the start of the session. He's on his second bike and is up into the top 6 now.
Agura's strong start bodes well for a strong weekend, doesn't it? Because normally he's sleeping on a Friday morning. Agura, 3rd quickest, so close to a 53 himself, is the Japanese rider. He, at the moment, is top Aprilia on circuit. That could change very, very quickly, because as you can see on screens, armed with a new medium front tyre is his teammate Ralph Fernandez. This will be a bit of a pick-me-up, because he was very much under the weather on arrival to this Grand Prix of Czechia, and this will be tough. Any kind of illness takes a bit of a stuffing out of you. In these hot conditions, this afternoon's going to be as high as 30 degrees, and right on cue, Ralph Fernandez does indeed wrestle 3rd place away from Agura-san. So he's done a 1:53.807. The 3rd rider then this morning, who's in the 53s.
Factory Ducati 1-2. Here is the second of those, Pecco Bagnaia. Trackhouse Aprilia 3-4, Fernandez, Agura. You've then got Ducati's 5th and 6th, Aldeguer and Di Giannantonio. First KTM, now 7th Acosta. First Honda, 8th, Luca Marini. And the first of the Yamahas at the moment is just outside the top 10. That is Fabio Quartararo, who's currently in 11th place, a second off the pace on a 1:54.3. Toprak Razgatlioglu also going well on the Pramac Yamaha in 14th place, but Fabio Quartararo already showing signs that he is far happier around Brno than he was at any stage around Balaton Park.
Pecco Bagnaia is getting destroyed by Marc Marquez. Most people are in that second sector, nearly a quarter of a second down on the best time in that second split. But still, the 29-year-old Italian arrives here in Brno, podiums in 3 Grand Prix in succession. First time he's managed that since Austin, Qatar and Jerez. Back at the start of 2025, 62nd MotoGP podium last time out for Pecco. Ties Andrea Dovizioso in 10th place in the all-time list. We now have a Ducati 1-2-3. That's Fermin Aldeguer there. Fires in a 1:53.779, which is a pretty impressive lap time from Aldeguer. That's precisely a 10th of a second behind Bagnaia.
you get a good idea of the undulation change around this Brno circuit, particularly through this final sector. You make your way down to the Schwanz curve at turn 10 and drop downhill, and then you're climbing uphill, up horsepower hill. You can just see it there. Could have been an example of it, which isn't necessarily as easy to work out from the normal camera shot of just how steep it is up to the top of turn 13 before you make your way through the final corner of 14. I haven't covered this circuit on foot, but I learned from those that have that it is particularly punishing if you are trying to make your way up horsepower hill on foot.
Back in my youth, back when I had a lot more energy than I have these days, I used to sort of try and run on Thursdays at Grand Prix circuit. I remember coming when I was in that phase, I got to horsepower hill and I was just like, what are you doing?
Like what have you done?
Yeah, absolutely. That fourth sector in Brno is pretty unique because it's almost entirely uphill. And the difference, as Lewis just mentioned, there is spectacular undulation around this Brno circuit. The difference between the highest and lowest point around this track is 73 metres, meaning it's got the biggest undulation on the entire Grand Prix calendar. Joan Mir comes to the party up into fourth place with a 153.717. Unfortunately, after he got a bit of a whack from Enea Bastianini, an unsafe rejoin, got to Enea through the long lap penalty in Balaton at the first corner. There was another double DNF that followed, or another DNF for the 28-year-old Spaniard. And he comes to Brno, a track where he's DNF'd in all three previous appearances in MotoGP. And luck has not been on his side in all of them, because on every occasion, he's been taken out by another rider. Alex Marquez cleaned him out here last year. He was taken out by Johan Zarco and Frankie Morbidelli in an incident on lap 1 in 2019. And then he was skittled out by Iker Lecuona in 2020. So a rider that's going to be looking for a big transformation in fortune around Brno is going to be Joan Mir.
Jorge Martin now up into 8th place. He has put some fresh rubber on, of course, had to, because the tyres he was using at the start of the session are on the bike that broke down. He's now got himself down to a 154.149. This is looking good for Raul Fernandez, who's already split the factory Ducatis and might be about to close the gap still further on Marc Marquez. Fernandez does that with a 153.5. He's now 2/10 off the world champion.
Mir's gunning for the top three because, as you can see, he's on fresh rubber, front and rear. Here he is on the 36 factory Honda. Despite the fact he is moving on to the Gresini Ducati, we believe, next year. We are told that he will represent HRC here at the Monday 850cc test. So we'll track Mir as he powers up horsepower hill and hard on the brakes. Just that rear tyres pivoting right to get him set up for the left-hander here. Now through the final corner, look at that knee and elbow dragging on the tarmac for Mir. This might be a top 2 lap from Joan Mir. Top 3 it is, a 153.523. But as mentioned, he is out on that fresh combination.
Medium front, medium rear for Mir. Soft front, medium rear for Jorge Martin. As he now drops through the Schwanz curve and begins that ascent up towards the end of the lap. Up ahead of him is Maverick Vinales, who we saw on the floor at the very start of the session. Vinales has got himself up into 15th place now on a 154.3. He is a second